Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Joined the White Dragon Empress Part 6. Before we start, please go support AbrahamJosueSalasRoa for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 21 Dragons vs Demons. The city was in chaos. The vampires were fleeing from the huge and terrifying evil dragons that only caused disaster in their path. Some vampires fell from fear and others were about to be devoured. But Valery's team along with Ria's and Kiba took care of the enemies. Kiba slit the throats of the evil dragons by summoning his swords, either from the ground or throwing them to knock down the dragons, while he covered Ria's, who at least could still continue fighting without problems. Faye with her magic circles bombarded those dragons with powerful blasts, while her brother Arthur covered her and cut the dragons without problems. Kuroka and Biku did something similar to that of the Pendragon brother duo, without any problem. Where the Nekomata burned those flying lizards with her Kasha to ashes and the Yaokai crossed them with his Ryuji Bang. And Fenrir, he fought without problems against the evil dragons, they barely gave him a challenge. Obviously, while they were battling these things, they were in charge of guiding the civilians to shelter. And when an evil dragon gets in their way, they just take care of it. I hope Issei, Valery and Tiamat are okay. Kuroka showed slight concern for those three, since his opponents were very powerful demons. He does not doubt the strength of the three of them, but they still do not know the reach of their enemies. They will be. Trust them. Biku said without any concern as he continued fighting against the evil dragons that were approaching them. Issei. Ria said mentally and worriedly, seeing for a few moments the place where Issei went to fight with Euclid Lucifuge. Well, what a good time. Euclid sounded pleased, while in front of him was his opponent, Haidu Issei, the Sekiryuite. It will be an honor to face you, Sekiryuite. Euclid. Tell me something. Why did they invite me, Valery and the others to stop them? What do they gain from that? Issei wanted to clarify that doubt for a long time, since. Why did Euclid and the others, who are the new leaders of Chaos Brigade, invite them to stop them? That's his doubt. Well. The reason is simple. Euclid would put his hands on his back, trying to look polite. When we found out that the current two heavenly dragons were now on the same team, we thought it would be fun to involve them both in this. Furthermore, Rizavam-sama and Razavam-sama wanted to see Valery Lucifer-chan once again. I don't know what plans you both have with her, family things. But by involving you in this, we obtained good data to resurrect the legendary evil dragons. The battle they had against Ozzy Dahaka made us realize that we must modify those dragons, and their battle with him made the research advance, and now Ozzy Dahaka is stronger than before. The same can be applied with the others evil dragons legendaries that we are going to revive. Hearing what Euclid said, Issei didn't know what to say. I mean, they didn't attack them out of pure pleasure or because they wanted to kill them even if they wanted to. They only used them, and without knowing it, they helped the enemy to improve their research and so on. Shit, they were deceived and used. And before he says anything, Euclid would look towards the burning town with chilling eyes and say, but, this sure is ironic. Let the vampires who have lost their weaknesses attack their own homeland. They were proud to be vampires and at the same time detested the vampire lifestyle. And this is the result of that. Didn't this happen because you urged them to do this? Issei asked carefully, without letting his guard down. Euclid sighed. This has been running through my mind this whole time. A longiness upsets the balance of an important principle, truth, and even the foundations of it. Yes, you received new options. For the possessors as well as those around them. They simply chose that option. For the sake of doing so, they collapsed like this. What Euclid said that Issei either couldn't understand or considered it as stupidity. Although he is surprised that Euclid gives his opinion of this situation. This could be the result of the choice that you and those around you chose. DSK. Stop talking nonsense. Issei decided to cut the conversation short and began to emanate a dangerous red-green aura. Very good. I guess it's about time I tried it. This must also be destiny. So, I'll show you now. Euclid with an amused laugh would raise his right arm at Issei's doubt, but. Activate, boosted gear. With those words, a reddish glow appeared on his right arm and when it dissipated, a familiar-looking gauntlet was revealed on Euclid's right arm. The boosted gear. What the hell? Issei was speechless and surprised to the extreme. And Drag, he didn't know what to say to what he saw, but. That's not all I have. Observe. Balance breaker. With those words, an intense red aura surrounds Euclid and when it dissipates. What appears is Euclid wearing armor identical to Issei's. Be boosted gear scale male. Issei was once again speechless at what he saw. Even for a moment he thought this was a bad joke. Yes, that's how it is. This is the boosted gear scale male. Although it is a replica. But a very good one. A retort. Drag finally decided to speak after being silent for so long. Absurd. There is no way a sacred gear like this can be copied. Did his research advance much further than Azazel's? No, that is impossible. This is an act that surpasses even the power of the biblical God. What Drake said was true. Longinus are one of a kind. Since it is impossible for two of the same kind to exist at the same time. And they are not two in one like Valery Teeps. Yes, it's correct. I couldn't create this out of nothing. Although it would be a completely different story if he had something he could use as a basis for it. Euclid would point to Issei. Hi do Issei, do you remember your battle against Ozzy Dahaka? And what does that have to do with the fact that you have that replica with you? Issei asked. Simple. During the course of that battle, I noticed how one of the gems on your armor had come loose from your broken armor. So I took it without them realizing it, and thanks to that gem that was a part of your sacred gear, I was able to create this replica. Issei and Drake did not know what to say to what Euclid said. It was more than absurd being able to create a replica just by using one of the gems in his armor. By creating this replica based on that gem, it is a very good and perfect replica. Almost the same as the original. The only difference between yours and mine is that yours has the soul of the Welsh dragon, Drake. Because of that missing element, I don't have something like the Juggernaut drive. Proof that it is possible to create even replicas of some Longinus, as long as you have parts of them to create replicas of them. It even makes me think that before the two celestial dragons were sealed, the biblical God would have already created the sacred gears, boosted gear and divine dividing, as a reference to the power of the celestial dragons. But by sealing said dragons into said sacred gears, this would be how both sacred gears became Longinus. For having a unique element, the soul of a dragon or legendary beast. What Euclid said left Issei and Drake absolutely speechless. It seemed impossible to create, but it was real. They had in front of them a replica of the boosted gear, created from one of the gems from the original's armor. That's something that not even Azazel himself would have thought of. And Euclid's supposed theory of the true origin of the boosted gear and divine dividing seemed to make some sense. According to Azazel, there are sacred gears with powers that refer to legendary creatures and even the powers of certain gods, these being with a single specific skill. In addition, there are also sacred gears with the boost and transfer abilities of the boosted gear individually, proving that boosted gear is a combination of both abilities. Since according to Azazel, all Longinus at the same time are the combination of one ability with another. Giving more meaning to Euclid's theory. But hey, enough talk. Hi do Issei. Let's have an epic battle between Securuites. Euclid makes a battle stand still in the air. Come on hi do Issei. He uses the so famous crimson armor that he was able to defeat that brat Cow and face Ozzy Dahaka. Don't worry, I'll wait. TSK. Don't underestimate me. Issei internally had to agree with Euclid. If he wants to win, he will have to go to his maximum to achieve it. Very good. With that, a red-green aura enveloped Issei, and it began to grow enormously. So, I, who is about to wake up, I am the Securuite who carries the real truth on high. I will celebrate hope and the indestructible infinite dream. I will walk the path of justice. I will be the Crimson Dragon Emperor. And I will lead you to the path of heaven shining in the true and deep crimson light. Crimson Cardinal Overdrive. An intense crimson jade glow was present in the place after the last verse, and when it dissipated, Issei was seen with his crimson armor while he emitted a crimson jade aura with gold. Very good. Haha. Euclid laughed. Please. That's what he was waiting for. Let's start this battle between the true Securuite against the false Securuite. Euclid doesn't even mind calling himself fake since it was true. But he trusted in the power of him. Let's go then. But that said, Issei and Euclid increased their auras incredibly, and with that, they both flew at high speed against each other, thus colliding and creating a powerful shock wave that removed the snow around them. The city was burning in flames, the screams of civilians plus the police sirens, it was just another touch to the bad atmosphere. Those from special services and rescue tried to put out the flames with magic or human technology. Chaos flooded the entire territory, although some young people were in charge of the evil dragons that crossed heaven and earth. And in the middle of all that chaos, in the air, there were two female figures who were battling with their own speed and collided every few times, creating explosions and rumblings in the air. Those were the Dragon Queen, Tiamat, and the succubus demon, Nehema, who had a crazy fight in the middle of that chaos. Even in the midst of their mid-air clash, Tiamat attacked with a blast of blue fire. Nehema counterattacked with a demonic blast, and the impact was even, both attacks were cancelled. Ijijijiji. I never thought that she would have the opportunity to test me against who is the strongest among the Dragon Kings. Nehema sounded excited and happy about this fight. Is she a lover of chaos or is she just crazy? Whatever it is surprising that she was one of Adam's lovers. You're so excited, Batwoman. Still, is that all you have? Because I'm not even serious. Tiamat said those words that although they would be mocking, she was very serious without a hint of mockery. Gijiji. You'll see. Instantly, Nehema was surrounded by a chilling red-black aura. And then her nails would lengthen, turning into long, sharp claws, just as a pair of fangs appeared on her teeth. What a change. Now, are you ready? That aura. Vampire? How is that possible? If you are a succubus. Tiamat was still serious while asking that question, this gave her a bit of a bad feeling. If you. It's just like you say, I'm a succubus. But I bet you don't know very well about our abilities, right? Tiamat's silence seemed to be enough as a response for Nehema. You see. Succubi are a subspecies of demons. We are demons, but with a different purpose and our own way of strengthening ourselves. Succubi like me tempt men in order to absorb their vitality and so on, and it is through these hexual acts that we become stronger. But we have another quality. Nehema would then point to the fangs in his mouth. When a succubus devours a member of another race, no matter what it is, it obtains the powers and qualities of that being of another race that it devoured. So, Nehema would instantly, with her claws, stab her abdomen to the astonishment of Tiamat. And when Nehema withdrew her claws and began to bleed where she stabbed herself, it was seen how that wound was healed instantly, regenerating. Without leaving any scar. I devoured several vampires from this territory, and in doing so, I obtained their qualities. Now I have the regeneration of a vampire combined with my succubus demon nature. Including this. Nehema would then launch a grey blast that Tiamat dodged without problems, but upon feeling the energy of said blast, she was surprised. That was. I also devoured some fallen angels who were working for us. Thanks to that, I can also use light. If you had to define me in any way, it would be that I am a demonic abomination. Not for nothing am I proud of my succubus species, we would be the most powerful demons if it weren't for the fact that we are few. Currently, I am the only one left. But anyway, the talk is over. Nehema instantly enveloped herself in demonic aura, combined with light and vampiric aura, in order to attack Tiamat with her best flying speed. Tiamat instantly dodged her and took distance from her for a moment. He knew that if he is going to fight the succubus, he must end the fight as soon as possible since she has regeneration, and that in itself is problematic and can cost him dearly. Tiamat would be enveloped in a bright celestial light that was seen throughout the area where they were, and as it dissipated, the Dragon Queen appeared in her humanoid dragon form. She knows that if she wants to win as soon as possible, she must go all out. Instant. Quickly, both women found themselves in a clash of energy and impacts at high speed in the air. The blue fire of Tiamat and the demonic light of Nehema collided with such force that it was like watching fireworks. Their fight in the air destroyed everything around it. Sometimes killing the evil dragons around without having said intention. Tiamat and Nehema had a fight of magic and fists. Fights between women were indeed to be feared. More because there is no truce between them. Tiamat managed to kick Nehema, who complained about it, only to land a clean blow on the Dragon Queen's face. He felt as if that demonic light could pierce through her strong and resistant scales. How dangerous is that rare combination of light with demonic power? Nah, it doesn't matter. With this, Nehema simply launched several blasts of demonic light towards Tiamat, who created a large blast of fire and sent it to intercept the enemy attack. The impact of the attacks created a strong luminous flaming explosion that lasted very little. Even so, Tiamat knew that a long battle against someone like Nehema, who can even regenerate, is not a luxury. He had to finish this as soon as possible. Before. He must attack harder. But that said, Dragoness and Succubus once again had a clash of powers in the air at high speed, creating several roars. Tiamat enveloped herself in her aura and blue fire, and so did Nehema with her demonic light. Her shock generated more and more destruction in the area where they were. All this while Tiamat thought of a way to win at any cost. The battle between Issei and Euclid had intensified in such a way that it seemed crazy. Both launched simultaneous attacks, although Euclid opted more for physical attacks reinforced with his magic. The attacks of both were so powerful that even the surrounding evil dragons died when they were in the middle of their fight. Over booster, the thrusters would release energy, and with that, the Securutate disappeared from his opponent's sight to his surprise, then turned around and saw that he had appeared next to him. Issei raised his right fist, concentrated power on it, and he gave Euclid the tremendous blow to the face that sent him flying a few meters. Not bad. But. It's not enough. Euclid with his own speed attacked Issei, who barely defended himself from his attack. Euclid with a twist in the air would make his hand shine, and something began to materialize in it. It was. A sword. Issei instantly with his own energy, raised his arm and covered himself with a green barrier, which managed to block the attack of Euclid's sword. How close. How good he learned to create barriers with his energy, he must thank Lefay. You narrowly blocked it. But if I hand, it wouldn't be fun. Euclid sounded pleased when he said that. What is that sword? Asked Issei, seeing that the sword Euclid had was a sword with a purely red blade. The handle was golden, and there was a green gem in the center of the handle. Oh? This? Well, it's simple, he also created this sword based on the gem of your boosted gear, with which he even created this replica. Issei didn't know what to say about what Euclid said. Did you really think that I didn't use it very well? The potential of that gem of yours. When I created my replica, I could shape it any way I wanted. So I did this, first create my replica with the same appearance as your boosted gear. And with the research of that gem, create this sword. If I had to give it a name, it would be Sword Boosted. And the reason for that is because he can do this too. Boost, 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 boosted was heard in a mechanical voice from Euclid's Sword Boosted. Euclid would instantly raise the sword from him, and with the power accumulated, the sword was enveloped in a powerful grey-red aura. And then, with a slash of the sword, Euclid would launch a very large energy-cutting attack that Issei dodged for almost nothing. And upon seeing the result of the attack, he was left speechless. That energy-cutting attack he had left a perfect and deep line of destruction that had even crossed buildings in the distance. How crazy. Did you like that? And that's not even anything, it's barely a test. Issei would look at Euclid who was laughing. And that attack came only from my sword boosted thanks to its own boost, which did not come from my boosted gear replica. Ha, I have two for the price of one. Issei no longer knew what to say about this, it was more than absurd. Practically, Euclid not only had one, but now he has two very good replicas of his boosted gear changed to just his. And by only having two, Euclid could possibly become twice as strong and… Damn, here it comes. Issei by inertia would take out Ascalon, and it would collide with Euclid's sword boosted, thus the clash of both swords created a shock wave around him. And so, both began a sword fight in the air, and with that, their battle had increased in brutality and strength. Issei, with his own mastery, gave good attacks with his sword in combination with kicks or blows whenever he could against Euclid, who despite that incredible combination of attacks, seemed not to stop or stop. That sword version of the boosted gear along with a replica of the gauntlet were a serious problem. The force with which Euclid attacked was such that Issei's armor was damaged, but his barriers barely protected him. And as they continued their fight, everyone around them went flying, destroying or collapsing buildings, as well as eliminating evil dragons anything near them. Issei would receive a strong kick from Euclid that sent him into a building, colliding with several walls until finally stopping after crashing and passing through 6 walls. Oh, that was certainly a headache, and… Focus on the battle, you idiot. At Drake's shout, Issei quickly crossed his arms as he felt the impact of Euclid's body on him. He had entered through the wall to attack him by surprise. Issei would launch a kick to Euclid's abdomen, who although he complained a little about it, seemed like that blow was barely anything against him. And Euclid emanating aura from his fist, delivered his own blow to Issei's stomach, causing the young man to run out of air almost and the armor to break. No. I have never thought that I lack power, even comparing myself to my sister Graphia. No. Euclid would shake his head. This is proof that the boosted gear scale mail makes the user more powerful, the more powerful the user is. Just by hearing that, it became clear to Issei the great difference in powers. Since it is said that Graphia is the strongest queen and she is at the same power level as the mass. And for a demon with the same strength to carry the boosted gear scale mail. It is a fact that the difference in power is obvious. And even though Issei is in his evolved armor that puts him at Mao level, Euclid surpasses him by maybe a little. It doesn't matter. Even with the great difference between us. I have learned that in these situations, I don't need power to beat you, but my ingenuity and enthusiasm. The Issei with some pain would manage to distance himself from him and put himself on guard, ready to continue the fight. Even if I don't surpass you in power, I will do it in enthusiasm. Over booster. Quickly, the Issei went towards his opponent, put away his sword, and made his dragon claws appear wrapped in fire and aura from his sword. He wants to prove something. Hopefully his theory works out. Euclid also went to attack the Issei with his sword, and it collided with the young man's dragon claws. And with that, Issei would spin around him in the air and swing Euclid's sword aside, and being close enough to his opponent that he had his guard open. Euclid complained of pain almost to the extreme, as Issei had given him a quick and strong swipe with his claws that had left serious cracks in his armor. But why does what caused that attack hurt so much? And even he saw smoke coming out of his wounds, and he felt a familiar aura. And this is… It seems that in the end, my theory is true. Issei sighed a little more relieved to see that he had a chance to win. Euclid, if you already noticed, that was an attack that had the aura of Ascalon, who is a dragon slayer. But then why? Euclid would not finish his words, since, apparently, he already found the answer. Do the dragon slayers affect me? It will be. That's how it is. Euclid. Issei would point it out. Although you created a very good replica of my boosted gear, this sacred gear originates from being a dragon-type sacred gear. And those who wear dragon-type sacred gears, no matter whether or not they have the soul of a dragon sealed in the sacred gear, they are still dragon-type sacred gears that give the user a weakness. Being weak and sensitive to dragon slayers. And therefore, you created another weakness in you, one that I will use to my advantage. Shit. I didn't anticipate this. I thought that since it was a replica, it would not have this kind of weaknesses. But still. Euclid's armor would shine and it would be repaired, thus wrapping himself in a red-gray aura and wielding his sword. Issei also enveloped himself in his crimson jade aura and concentrated fire and dragon slayer aura into his dragon claws. He must be careful and attack at the right moment. Valery covered himself from the enemy attack as best he could, yet he was sent flying into a building. He is really hating this. The battle between father and daughter had intensified too much, to the point where Valery had no choice but to use his silver armor to gain the advantage. But even with that, the combat seemed to remain even. Valery left the wall quickly, only to see pillars of grey ice with small black details emerging from the ground. Just as a rain of spikes of set ice fell from the sky. How he hates this. Valery took flight to try to dodge the attacks that came from the air, although he could see how the ice pillars on the ground began to collapse. Spreading out and going towards her with the intention of attacking her. This must have been a joke. Valery would create a sword of silver energy, and with it she began to cut and destroy those pillars of ice, which she knew were combined with the demonic light. All this while Razavum watched everything from the roof of a building in peace. Manipulating ice like that and combining it with her demon light is something that no demon who is good with ice can do. Not even Seraphol Leviathan. By destroying more of those pillars that were against her, Valery made her wings absorb energy from the environment. Since in the places that were impacted by the magical attacks of both, there is still some power to spare, and he is not going to waste it. And with the recharge already obtained, Valery would create several magic circles in front of her, and these lined up. And he fired a powerful silver blast with blue rays without a second's hesitation. The shot in itself was powerful, managing to destroy and pierce the ice that served as a shield for Razavum. He took flight to avoid the attack of the hacker Yuiku, who repeated the action with another shot from her aligned circles. This time Razavum did not dodge, but instead went towards the shot and using his Katsueki thorn sword in his hands. He hit Valery's shot and advanced through it without any problem. Well, that shot was not loaded with her full power, for him to have been capable of such a feat is. Valery would put that aside and create two silver energy swords with blue rays. It was time for a direct combat between the two. And this one didn't take long to wait. The demonic sword collided with the hacker Yuiku's energy swords, and the shockwave was such that the ground where they stood basically turned into dust. But Valery knew that his swords barely resisted the attack of his father's sword. Shit. He knew that sword was powerful since he saw it, but this went beyond logic. How crazy was Lucifer when he created that sword? Never mind. He must continue. The girl would make her wings absorb more energy from the environment, and by sending the energy to her swords, they shone brightly and making them gain advantage against the enemy attack. Razavum was surprised to see that his sword was recoiling from the hacker Yuiku's. What I didn't expect was to receive a tremendous blow to the face from Valery, and before flying away. Divide. Razavum felt how his strength was reduced instantly. That was. He cursed that annoying ability of the hacker Yuiku. Since with just one divide, he felt his power drop to a little below the Mao level. Absurd. Valery, panting a little, smiled mockingly at his achievement, but he knew that if he wanted to beat Razavum faster using the divide, he has to at least touch him or hit him for it to work, otherwise it won't work. Since throughout the fight, Razavum was preventing Valery from touching him as he should to use his ability, but with the above, he now knew that he had to keep his distance. Very good. Enough of the games. Razavum was now totally serious, unlike at the beginning when he was somewhat mocking. And then, with a magic circle he would float his sword Ketsuekather, and as he did, the aura emanating from the weapon began to envelop Razavum and seemed to restore his power. How did he? This weapon that was created by Lucifer can also be used for various things if you are someone good with magic. This sword has the power of Lucifer, and now I am making that power strengthen me. Okay, that other piece of information about that sword was unexpected. And with that, Razavum guards his sword in his dimensional space and then creates a magic circle of enormous eyes in grey and black. And from this, that previous creature made of demonic light that had been eliminated before shot out. Oh come on. Valery was already more than fed up with that. She had no choice but to block the attack with her powerful barriers that were pierced one by that thing. He should do what he did before, but shit. That's what Razavum wants, that she wastes her energy unnecessarily. The bastard is undoubtedly a genius. Don't give up, Valery. We can't lose against this demon who calls himself a Lucifer. If you can't beat this idiot, you won't be able to beat Haidu Issei. Albion's shout sounded more like an animation for him to follow. You're right. Valery forced a smile as he continued trying to block Razavum's attack. I'm the hacker Yuku, and I fight alongside Albion Guiber, and we will not accept losing to someone who calls himself Lucifer. That's how it is, and let's show what we are capable of, although I must thank you for this, Haidu Issei. Your relationship with Valery changed her and made her stronger and better than she was before. Yes, maybe. This is the change that Dragon I needed, as well as our wielders. Albion said the other thing mentally, and then. Suddenly, the wings and gems of the armor would shine with a unique brilliance never seen before. And when the creature filled with demonic light was close to impacting Valery, something happened that surprised Valery, Albion and Razavum. And that creature made of demonic light was absorbed by the wings of Valery's armor. And then. Reflective Ein dividing had given a new function never heard before, which surprised Albion itself. That was. When that word resounded, a powerful torrent of power made from the same demonic light shot out from the wings of the divine dividing, and said torrent went towards Razavum, who instantly covered himself with a strong barrier. His own returned attack hit him. It had hit full and created a strong explosion in the air. Valery was stunned when she saw what happened. She didn't even know what happened or how she did what she did, but. Instantly, she felt a familiar pulse of energy and in the distance, she could see a silver crimson glow. And it was right in the area where Issei was fighting Euclid. What happened there? G. When you heard that growl that was not friendly at all, you could see how in the air was a barely intact Razavum who was able to block his own attack that was returned by just a little. Although the burns were noticeable on his body, indicating that he was not completely saved. I'm tired of games. Razavum would expel his demonic light aura. I better put an end to this. I should say that. Valery put aside what happened previously in order to put herself on guard and surround herself with his demonic silver aura. Something tells him that this battle is at its climax. In another part of the city engulfed in chaos. The battle Tiamat was having against Nehema was intense. Nehema would release blasts of demonic light while she protected herself whenever she could with a barrier from Tiamat's attacks. He already felt that a regeneration was not enough, and more so because she was fighting to end this once and for all. Tiamat concentrated her blue fire on her hands and launched them at the succubus, who launched spheres of demonic light to nullify the enemy attack. After that, he launched small blasts that Tiamat narrowly dodged or deflected with her hands. Although Nehema's regeneration is not eternal and it does not restore her lost energy, it is still better to end this at once. Time. Jew. This is getting more and more intense. Tiamat was gasping lightly for the entire time they fought. Gosh, not even when she fought against her other Dragon King companions in the past individually to measure strength did she feel this tired and wanting to get it over with. Without a doubt he had a very formidable demon as an opponent. If this is just beginning. Nehema, although she didn't show it, she was also wanting to get this over with. She feels her power somewhat low and how her regeneration was getting slower. The succubus launched another blast of demonic light from her hands, only for Tiamat to deflect it with her left hand, charged with blue fire. She also seemed tired, but not as tired as Nehema. The difference between the two is that the Dragon Queen has more power, while the succubus is at the Mao level, and that added to her regeneration and other abilities, it was problematic. And the only thing that will decide who wins is strength and endurance. Tiamat had trained hard with Issei, Valery and the others to improve her fighting style. Where if she were to face troublesome opponents who are superior in skill or technique, she should use her own learned enthusiasm to fight and win. She must have a clear mind when it comes to fighting, since a moment of lack of concentration, and it could go badly for her. TSK. Then let's see if you can handle this. Nehema charged demonic light throughout her body, ready for anything. Tiamat did the same with her blue fire. And the wings of the Chaos Karma Dragon seemed to release her own bluish flaming brilliance. And she stood on guard, ready to go on the attack. They both waited a few seconds, they need to channel their energy well for this great clash of powers. And then, an explosion was heard near them. It was that explosion that made them both fly to meet each other, wanting to show the other how strong they are. The impact of both did not take long to occur, the blue flames of Tiamat and the demonic light of Nehema battled to surpass the other. The clash was even, they were equal. But the factor that gave one the victory was simply power and resistance. The collision of both seemed to become unstable, and then. The huge explosion that was generated was enough for everything around to fly again, this time with more force. When the smoke cleared, Tiamat had landed on the ground as he panted from exhaustion. And to think that when he got together with Issei and Valery, he would have such crazy battles like this that he never had in the past. Proof that. Power attracts power. And with that two together, they attract double the power. Coup. Upon hearing that moan, Nehema had come out of the smokescreen. Tired and very hurt, where her wounds were slowly closing, but they didn't seem to ease the pain for now. I never thought that in my first battle. Against a legendary dragon. It would end this way. Succubus is over. You barely have any strength left, but you won't be able to continue. Better reassign yourself. Since I still have enough power left. In that crash I didn't use it all, although I almost did. Gigi. This is not over yet. Although I admit that I am in trouble and that the best thing to do now is to retreat. Nehema with his hand would take something out of the rubble around him, and what he took out was a vampire that he was almost dead. I'm not leaving without first leaving a scratch on that scaly face of yours. But what are you doing? Tiamat could not finish speaking, since instantly, Nehema with her fangs would bite the almost dead vampire on her arm. And then. That vampire's body began to decompose and dry out as if he were malnourished. And so when the succubus finished, he left the body of that now dead vampire on the ground. And Tiamat was able to identify thanks to his scent that that dead body no longer had blood in his nervous system. What a horrible way to die. Nehema would then be surrounded by a red aura like her blood, and her wounds would begin to heal little by little, relieving even the pain. And Nehema would take out her claws. Let's keep going. I have plenty of energy. Tiamat, seeing that, knew that there was no choice but to continue. It doesn't matter even if his opponent is completely cured and regains her previously lost strength. She is a dragon, and they never run away from a fight, no matter how much they are against it. It was then that he noticed a great silver crimson glow in the distance. Could it be? Moments before, Issei's battle against Euclid was now more intense than before, and it seemed as if they both had the same strength. Issei with his dragon claws managed to attack and block Euclid's attacks with the best of synchronicity. Euclid collided his sword with Issei's claws, and both seemed to be in a neutral clash and struggle. They both moved away from each other for the slightest of moments, and then charged at the other again. Euclid put away his sword and carried two red-gray blasts in his hands, hoping that when it collided with Issei, it would hurt him with an explosion. Issei quickly put away his dragon claws and charged his sword aura and crimson jade fire into his fists. And just like that, both of their fists would collide with each other, and the shock wave was such that the surroundings turned into dust. Euclid seemed to have the advantage in that fist fight, but the Dragon Slayer aura of Issei's fist made him resent. And they both knew what they had to do to surpass the other in this struggle. Boost, 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 boost. Both with the power they accumulated tried to gain advantage against the other. Which was more noticeable in Issei, since his increased Dragon Slayer aura made Euclid retreat, who was surprised to see that he was losing ground to the Security's blow, almost as if it were nothing. He cursed the Dragon Slayer that gave the brunette the advantage. What Euclid didn't expect was for Issei to put less force into his struggle, and when he was about to let Euclid pass him by, Issei quickly delivered a strong blow charged with Dragon Slayer aura to Euclid in his stomach, making him even spit something out of blood, and that his armor breaks, and that he is moved a few meters away from the Security. GGGGRRRR. You will pay for that. Euclid was now angry and then went against the Security again with his boosted sword in hand. Issei quickly took out Ascalon and made her emit her now gloomy aura that gave Euclid chills, but that didn't stop them from clashing their weapons and creating a slight shock wave. Issei knew that Euclid could increase the power of his sword. Because it's on a sword-shaped boosted gear, but that must have a limit. And if he harnesses Ascalon's power properly, it will not lose against the sword boosted. Issei attacked the demon with quick and precise cuts, while Euclid dodged and blocked without any problem. Even so, Issei took a deep breath and without stopping his attack, he released a crimson jade flame from his mouth, making Euclid retreat. To avoid that, he almost forgot that the Security has fire breath. Boost, 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 boost. Transfer. Issei launched a powerful crescent-shaped slashing attack from his sword. The attack was towards Euclid, who was surprised by the Security's sudden attack. But he created a defensive circle that managed to block that attack with great effort. Only to later see how Issei had flown directly towards his person, with his sword emanating a terrifying aura. Cross-slashed the Security, swinging his sword with great strength and speed, made an X-shaped cut across the demon's entire chest. This caused Euclid to fall to the ground with overwhelming force. Issei on his side stayed in the air trying to catch his breath. Those sword skills he learned from Arthur, although the latter has more complex skills. Expelling his aura forcefully, Euclid emerged from the rubble wounded, with his armor broken and without a helmet, and with a very unfriendly face. So. How about this? Euclid would create a silver circle in front of him, which seemed to charge energy, and boost, 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 boost. The boosts from the boosted gear replica seemed to increase the charge of Euclid's attack. Seeing that, Issei knew he had to fight back. There is no other way. If he dodges that attack, it will only further destroy the city and endanger the evacuated civilians. There are no other options. Issei carried a crimson jade sphere in his hands, and then Boost, 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 boost. Let's see if you can resist this. Euclid, without a second's hesitation, shot a powerful torrent of red-gray energy from his circle. Crimson cannon Issei shot from his hands together, a torrent of crimson jade. The two huge attacks collided on top of the city that was the battlefield. And it caused a great explosion that echoed in the surroundings. And after the smoke dissipated, Euclid was shown to be the same as before, only he was panting a little. Although Issei seemed to be putting on a show, he had to work even harder to counter that attack. How can there be so much difference between the two just because they are different possessors? Without a doubt, scale mail makes the user more powerful the more powerful the user is. How frustrating. Come on partner, don't give up now, we can't lose to this impostor of ours, only Albion and I are sufficient as celestial dragons. Drake encouraged his companion to continue, with a tone of rage and reckless confidence, only the two of us are CANCELADA, and that's enough just for us. At the shout of his partner, Issei stood firm to continue this fight. He is right. Both of them would not have made it this far if it weren't for the many hard battles they fought. They have survived until now. They both spent all their time together. I am the CANCELADA. Issei raised his left arm in the air, and the gem of this shine I fight alongside the celestial dragon, Drake Gotch, and we cannot accept losing to a cheap imitation of us. That's how it is. There is no way an impostor like you, Euclid Lucifer, can understand the two celestial dragons who have become lifelong friends. Thanks to our possessor's relationship, I can finally get along with Albion, so there is no way that another heavenly dragon exists apart from us. That's how it is. They can only see two celestial dragons, and Issei would increase incredibly. His sacred gear is responding to his emotions. I love Valery Lucifer. That scream was accompanied by a powerful explosion of crimson jade aura that enveloped him. But before the fight resumed, suddenly, the gems on Issei's armor began to emit a silvery white with turquoise glow. What was this? It's the first time this happened, but the silvery white light with turquoise looks like Valery's silver armor. But why? The silver with turquoise glow emitted more strongly on Issei's right arm. And after the light disappeared, Issei could see how the right gauntlet on his arm was no longer crimson, it was now silver with a turquoise gem. That was the dividing gear. Issei couldn't believe that the white gauntlet, which represents Valery's power as the Hacker Yuiku, had suddenly appeared. That's it. The power of the Hacker Yuiku that you took in your first fight with her. Euclid was even surprised by such an event, he couldn't believe it. But why? Issei couldn't finish his words, because the silver gauntlet shined and then a small shiny white object came out of the gem of the gauntlet, and when the shine disappeared from it, it revealed a small white dragon flying at the height of Issei's head. What is that? Is it? Drake seemed to know what it was about. The last time something like this happened was when we risked our lives to assimilate the power of Albion. Issei would remember the battle he had against Valery in the meeting of the three factions. The moment I screamed everything that was in my mind, the thoughts of Albion flowed into me. And from what I can see from that little dragon next to you, you can control it with your mind and use the dividing gear. Won't they consume my lifespan? Issei asked, wanting to be sure. Oh. Interesting. I have done the analysis and this is unexpected. Apparently they will only consume your stamina and there is no danger to your life. With both the dividing gear and that little dragon, you are not in danger. Well, let's try them. The gems on Issei's armor would shine again in turquoise silver, and then several shiny orbs would emerge from the gems that turned into small white dragons. And at that moment, an X symbol appears on the gem of his gauntlet. Go against him. But said order, the small white dragons flew towards Euclid at high speed and separated, surrounding the demon. Euclid, not wanting to know what those things will do, he fires his own dragon shots at those little dragons. And when those gusts seemed to hit the dragons, reflect, that new function was heard, and the blasts that Euclid launched against those dragons were reflected, going this time against Euclid, who dodged as best he could. His attacks reflected from him, but a couple of these would manage to hit him squarely in the back. But what? Oh. Incredible. Issei was surprised at what these dragons were capable of. Okay, now he knows how to take advantage of them. Let's start with the next round. Euclid. Overdrive booster. The armor's thrusters would release a sonic boom, so Issei attacked Euclid with divine speed and managed to knee him hard in the stomach. But how? Let's see if you like this. Issei raised his fist and punched Euclid in the face. And to top it off, the silver glove absorbed the power of the demon. But it didn't end there, as Issei headbutted Euclid with such force that the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Damn, Euclid was losing ground. This was going badly for him. And this other blow. Issei gave a push back and then completely enveloped himself in crimson jade fire and dragon slayer aura. With a turquoise silver aura included. It's because of Lefay Flaming Dragon Emperor Slayer. Divide. That powerful blow from the Sekiryuite hit Euclid's chest, destroying his armor, doing him serious damage, and also dividing his power in the process. The demon fell to the ground with such speed and force, crashing roughly into the rubble, while Issei sighed. A little more relieved. He was somewhat exhausted, but he could continue without any problem. And asked, what did you think of that? You owed me for that hit you gave me. Issei sounded mocking when he said that. From the rubble. Euclid emerged with a very unfriendly face. He was furious. His armor was even more broken, wounds on various parts of his body, and bleeding even with parts of the armor. No, this won't end like this. Euclid expelled a grey aura combined with a red one from his boosted gear replica while he took flight until he was at Issei's height. The games are over. Hi to Issei, I'm going to beat you, then prove it. Issei became guarded when he said that, and Euclid took that as a provocation. Boost. Euclid's aura increased terrifyingly due to the boosts, and he concentrated all the energy to create a massive energy of average size, but with worrying power. Seeing that, Issei knew that he couldn't counter that, but the white dragons that came out of the gems of his armor lined up next to him, and with that, a crazy idea just occurred to him. Hopefully it turns out. Issei would make the gems on his armor shine, summoning more small white dragons around him. Time for the extreme play. I will prove that I am better than you at using this power and bringing out its full potential. A longiness like that deserves to be in the hands of someone talented like me, and not a talentless one like you. Euclid, with his hands in front, had a grey-red sphere the size of a person, and it was very dangerous. At once devastating burst. A powerful torrent of grey-red energy went against the Sekiryuite, who prepared for everything, and then boost. All the small dragons positioned themselves in front of Issei and lined up in the shape of a circle, where the young man was inside the circle. The Sekiryuite raised his right arm in front, in which was the dividing gear, and when all the armor began to glow again, the light trail wings of the armor turned silver. And when Euclid's attack was about to hit Issei and his dragons, reflect, transfer, penetrate unexpectedly, the boosted gear managed to activate a new command for a second. One that surprised Drag. And Issei didn't seem to notice or hear the new command. Given that. But the three functions activated and the dragons aligned, Euclid's attack was reflected, returning against the latter, this time with more power than before. Euclid, seeing his own attack being returned, inertially covered himself with a strong barrier. And the reflected attack hit him squarely. The explosion created covered the entire area where they were. Issei gasped when he saw the result of his counterattack and sighed in relief when he saw that it worked. He knew that if he wanted to reflect an attack this powerful, he would need all the white dragons possible to achieve such a feat. When the glow and smoke of the explosion dissipated, a seriously injured Euclid was seen on the ground. His armor was almost gone. His right glove was damaged but almost complete, and the left. It was not there was only a part of it. His legs were covered by what was left of the armor. The armor in the chest area was no longer there. Blood was coming out of his eyes, as if he were crying. And he felt a ringing in his ears. Indicating that they were bleeding. What a way the self-proclaimed full Sekiryuite turned out. And it can't be. Euclid coughed up some blood, trying to stand up. I achieved. Counter my best attack. It's over, Euclid. You lost. The aforementioned person got upset at that mention from the Sekiryuite. I couldn't see it finished, not yet. An unpleasant smile was heard in the place, and the origin of that was. I see there's a big deal here, and Euclid. It's incredible that you took a beating from the Sekiryuite. Although it was a bit to be expected, since it is about him after all. Rizavam sounded mocking when saying that. Rizavam-sama. Issei and Euclid had their different reactions upon seeing the appearance of Lucifer's son. One seriously and the other dismayed. Euclid, it's time to retire. The city is already very destroyed, so let's retreat for today. Rizavam continues laughing at the situation. You're not going anywhere. Rizavam Azazel had arrived at the place with his wings spread, and he looked somewhat injured. Indicating that he perhaps had a fight against Rizavam and barely came out intact. Wow, what a moving departure meeting. Shit. Better let's go once and for all, before they kill us. Rizavam and Nehema would also have arrived at the scene, wounded and otherwise. Where the most exhausted was the succubus, while Rizavam only gave light gasps with wounds on his face and body. I'm not done with you yet. Rizavam Valery had also arrived at the place at high speed, with his armor somewhat broken but still intact. And here I thought you'd want to play a little more, succubus. Seeing everyone gathered here makes me understand that it is best to retreat or else everything will go to waste. Rizavam would then look in a certain direction. Oh, there you are, my little bodyguard. Everyone would look in the same direction as Rizavam and see how Lilith also arrived at the place. And her mere presence made Issei, Valery, Tiamat, and Azazel nervous. Since not even the four of them together could do anything to Lilith. Gigi. We already have our exit ticket. Nehema sounded mocking at how lucky they were now. Razavam Sama, activate the transportation circle. Don't tell me what I already know. Razavam with a neutral tone created a large transport circle beneath him. And Nehema, Euclid and Rizavam gathered next to him. Issei and the others wanted to stop them and prevent them from escaping, but with Lilith getting closer and closer. They knew they couldn't lift a single finger if she was present. Well, it's time. Come on Lilith-chan, it's time to go. However, even with Rizavam's call, Lilith didn't move from where she was, which was near Issei and company. Lilith. Go with another Lilith. Lilith want family. What Lilith said left everyone speechless and confused. They didn't understand what she meant, but she is with us. Office had also appeared out of nowhere, next to Lilith. And both had held hands, much to the surprise of the others. Hey Lilith, did you not hear me? I told you to come here, we're leaving. Even with Rizavam's screams, Lilith did not move from her place, not even being willing to go with him. Rizavam now sounded a little desperate as he shouted that all confidence, arrogance and mockery had disappeared from his face, to be exchanged for despair. Trust Lilith. Finish them off. As said by Office. With some hesitation, Issei and the others prepared to resume their attack on Rizavam and the others. This time they won't escape. Azazel would raise his hand, and above him a gigantic spear of light of worrying size would appear. Burn yourselves with this. Tiamat carried her blue flames in his hands to create a large sphere of blue fire of average size. Only Issei and Valery were the only ones who stood by without doing anything, since with Rizavam next to his allies, he could easily repel their attacks enhanced by his sacred gears, thanks to his sacred gear canceller. So it's better to leave this to them, to Azazel and Tiamat, until we can separate those idiots. And without hesitation, the Fallen One and the Dragon Queen launched their attacks against Lucifer's son and his allies, who prepared for everything. Damn. Razavam would pull something out of his bag, it was like some kind of relic or similar. And said object released a strong glow. Thus covering him, his father, Euclid and Nehema, a barrier that easily withstood the combined attack of Azazel and Tiamat. Tch. We must retreat now or we won't get out of here. Lilith, how can you do this to me? I believe you, therefore you must obey me. Rizavam kept insisting for Lilith to go with them, but she ignored her words. You're a bastard, Rizavam. Issei said with a neutral tone. To you, Lilith, Office's copy is nothing more than someone you can use for your benefits. You are taking advantage of her lack of awareness, and that bothers me. Idiot, we have to go, otherwise they are going to kill us here. And now Nehema was trying to get Rizavam to give up and leave Lilith. It was the definitive one. She had betrayed them. It won't be like that. Azazel carried a large pair of spears of light in his hands. While Tiamat prepared another great fire attack. Rizavam, seeing the situation, reluctantly understood that they were now at a disadvantage. And that the best thing was, Tch. Let's retreat, we will see us again. They will not escape. Azazel and Tiamat had launched their attacks again, but they were repelled without any problem by the barrier created by Razavam's object. We will not see another time, Governor Azazel, Valery and Securite. Razavam said, and his transportation circle began to glow. And before retiring. And by the way, we are now called Klepeth. The opposite of the side of life Sephrith. Until then. Saying that, Rizavam, Euclid and Nehema disappeared from the place in the light of the magic circle. Lilith, seeing Rizavam and the others leave, she didn't feel anything. No emotion whatsoever. Office just caressed Lilith's head, as if congratulating her on her choice. And the others didn't know what to say about Lilith. Oh, well. Azazel would scratch the back of his neck. They may have escaped and with the Holy Grail, but at least we are left with the other half of Office, Lilith. So that's some kind of achievement. Good job, Office. Azazel gave a thumbs up to Office, who just nodded without any expression. You'll see, Razavam. Valery clenched his fist in rage, seeing that his father escaped and he couldn't do anything to prevent it. I will make you suffer for everything you have done. Issei looked with intrigue at the way Valery felt as he looked at his white gauntlet that was back to its usual red. The time he could use that power was up. Things were going to take a new turn in several ways from now on. The battle in the land of the vampires had ended with a kind of achievement for Issei and company by having Lilith on their side. At least today, Romania was freed from the chaos in which it was engulfed. Chapter 22 An end to begin again. The Teep's Castle City, where the vampires turned evil dragons attack took place, finally ended after the retreat of Rizavam and his allies. But the aftermath in the city is horrible. Everything, including roads and buildings, have been completely destroyed to the point of not even being able to distinguish them. The surviving agents on the Teeps and Carmilla side are working hard evacuating civilians to the shelter. In the underground shelter beyond the eastern gate, the emergency team is hard at work treating injured civilians. According to Azazel, the condition of the city is much worse than in Castle City. And he has the impression that both the Teep side and the Carmilla side needed some time to recover from all this. Also that there are some on the Carmilla side who lost against the temptation of the Holy Grail and ended up becoming evil dragons who attacked their own people. Issei, Valery, Azazel, Tiamat, Office and Lilith went to the main castle of Teeps, which is in a bad state due to the attacks of the evil dragons. And when they arrive, they see that at the main entrance of the castle there was King Teeps, Issei Teeps, chatting with a very beautiful woman with silver hair and blood-red eyes. He looked like he was about 30-something years old and was wearing a nobleman's dress. And next to said woman, there was also Elmenhold, somewhat bewildered by everything that happened. "Hey, Issei Teeps-sama." Azazel caught the attention of King Teeps who stopped by to see him, just like that woman he could identify as a vampire, and Elmenhold also stopped by to see him. And Azazel set his sights on the young woman. "Dear Queen Carmilla, right?" "That's right, Governor Azazel." Queen Carmilla gave a slight bow in greeting. "Let me introduce myself, my name is Shaltier Carmilla. I regret not being able to receive it sooner and having it very much on hold." "Ah, it doesn't matter. Maybe tourism in these territories was somewhat entertaining." Azazel scratched the back of his neck, sighing. "And then get serious. You see, Issei-sama, Shaltier-sama. I have something to inform you." Both vampire leaders looked at the governor of the fallen with intrigue. And so, they were informed of everything that happened, how all this happened. How Marius Teeps made a deal with Rizavam to get the Holy Grail, the vampires both on Carmilla's side and Teeps turned into evil dragons after making a bad deal with Rizavam. And the reason for Valery's current state. And no. I can't believe that there are traitors among us. Elmenhold fell to the ground on her knees because she couldn't believe everything that happened. And they became evil dragons. And now our homeland is. What can we do? Elmenhold murmured things as if she had lost all hope. Shaltier was only sad and disappointed in those who have broken her vows not to get involved with the Sephiroth Grail. She should send for an investigation. Issei only felt sorry for the death of his son Marius. She knew that he was very obsessed with Valery's longinus as he offered to have it used so that he could rise above the Carmilla and proclaim himself as the most powerful vampire faction. But he never thought that his son would be making plans with it secretly when he had told her to let go of the Grail matter and that others supported him. What will happen to Valery now after what that demon did? Issei asked, seriously. The subspecies of the Sephiroth Grail that carries 2 in 1. It's a miracle his consciousness didn't collapse when Rizavam took one from him. But by doing that, he damaged his mind. Azazel put his hand on his chin. Since the effects he has were caused due to the removal of one of the 2 Sephiroth Grails that he had in his body, I can only conclude that Valery will not be able to return to normal until we return what was taken from her. But why did they take only 1 Grail when there were 2 of them? Issei asked to clarify a doubt. For if Rizavam could discover that Valery had a 2 in 1 subspecies, he could very well have taken them both, but he didn't. And that has doubts. I can only think that she did it because using more than one of them would be difficult to control. Judging by his words, just one of them will be enough to reach balance breaker. Anyway, we'll discover the rest for later. And Issei Teeps. Azazel would stare at King Teeps. Due to the current state of her daughter, I suggest that you let me and the Grigori take care of her until we can return the Grail that is missing from her. Okay. Issei responded without any objection and would look at the destroyed city. This was all sparked by my son's ambition and Valery awakening her sacred gear, which we didn't know she had until now. Therefore, things will be better if she goes with you. What's more, her childhood friend Gaspar Vladi will be there for her, right? That's how it is. I promise you. I assure you, Azazel. Then it's okay. Issei would sigh and then look at a couple of his guards. Bring Valery and tell her that I have to tell her something regarding our guests. The vampire guards nodded without hesitation to the orders of their king and went in search of the vampire of the Sephiroth Grail. Issei, Valery. We finished our part. Upon hearing that voice, Arthur could be seen with his other companions arriving at the place where those mentioned were. Area, that's it. Kuroka would put her eyes on where Office was and next to her was Lilith. Something that amazed the newcomers: what happened while we were saving the civilians. Well, to summarize. Office convinced her copy, Lilith, to come with us. And he betrayed Rizavam and the New Cows Brigade. Valery's response left his companion speechless. It was a little difficult to believe it, but it was true and they were seeing it in front of them. That's amazing. It seems like we gained a good advantage over them. Biku sounded very optimistic as he said that while he swings his staff. Maybe, but they still have the other Holy Grail. So this isn't quite a victory. Azazel crossed his arms with his eyes closed. They managed to escape despite our great advantage over them, but. Azazel sighed. You just have to defeat them next time. It won't be easy, but I know you little brats will make it. You can be sure of that, sensei. Issei stated, more than determined. Ah, Issei-sama. Lefei raised her hand, drawing the brunette's attention. Vera. Lefei would then point to a certain direction, and as everyone followed that direction with their gaze, they saw Riaz and Kibo also arriving at the place. But they both stopped in their tracks as they exchanged glances with the others, especially with Issei. Thus creating a type of tension in the atmosphere that was not hostility, but nervousness. Issei didn't know what to think about both of them when he saw them, and inside he was a little nervous. He didn't know what to do if they both decided to talk to him. He knew that this moment would come at any moment, but he didn't expect it so soon. And then, Issei felt someone put a hand on his shoulder, and seeing who it was. Oh. Azazel advised the brunette to go and talk to them. I will understand if there are certain differences between you, but it is best that you clarify everything now. Issei was surprised by what Azazel said, and before he can ask him something. We are not leaving yet, it will be after dealing with some more matters here. So, take advantage and talk to them now, before it gets more awkward later if they all turn up. Issei with some hesitation would look at his new teammates, and then at Valery. Where she nodded in agreement with what Azazel said. Very good. With a sigh and somewhat calming his nervousness, Issei walked to where Riaz and Kiba were at a normal pace. Well, these two were also nervous, she was even more nervous than the redeed. But that nervousness went away when they saw Issei approaching them. She couldn't help but shed a couple of tears of relief upon seeing him, alive and well. As she kept getting closer to them, which seemed like almost an eternity. Issei began to have mixed memories. I'm Riaz Gremory. I am a demon and your mistress. Nice to meet you, hi to Issei-san. Can I call you Issei? That time when he talked to her face to face, when she saved him from almost dying. Red and Red. The Seker-Yuete and the Crimson Princess of Ruin. Don't they seem like a perfect couple to you? Then become the most powerful pawn. Those words I use as motivation to be stronger and always meet the expectations of her former master. I'm a Gremory. No matter where I go, everyone sees me as Riaz Gremory. The future heiress of the Gremory house. I want to be with someone who loves me for who I am. It sounds very whimsical, but that's my dream. When she told him how she felt about how others look at her, she also began to remember that, for some time now. Both Riaz, her mother, Venelana and everyone else wanted something from him. And that had to do with his attitude towards Riaz. Back then, he convinced himself that he didn't understand Riaz's feelings and hurt her without realizing it, but she did the same with him, without realizing it. They both hurt each other in different ways, and all of that was because they were both selfish. I wish I had not reincarnated you as my servant. The memory of that night, those words. They had come back to bother him. Only achieving some sadness in Issei and understanding. And when he realized, he was only 3 steps away from Riaz and Kiba. Where the girl, upon approaching and being face to face with Issei, touched his cheek. And he was glad to know that it was him. Her eyes and hair were a little deeper and her hair slightly longer than before. But there was no doubt, it was him. And with that, letting out tears of relief, Riaz hugged Issei as if he was afraid that this wasn't real and that he would disappear instantly. Feeling and seeing the redeed hugging him with such affection, Issei felt a sense of nostalgia. The girl's sweet smell, her breasts pressing against his. Deep down I miss all that since that night he left, but instead of feeling happy about this, Issei didn't feel anything about this. No hate, no resentment, no indifference, no sadness. Nothing. Just pure nostalgia that didn't make him feel even happy. In addition to understanding and disappointment. This is not a dream. Riaz separated from Issei for a moment and hugged herself to convince herself that this was not a dream. It was real. Sobbed Issei. I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said that night, really. Please don't hate me because of my mistake. Issei thought for a moment about what she should say now. He mentally prepared himself for what he had to say in this situation, imagining all the possible scenarios with his former bandmates. And he already knew that he should say. Issei sighed. Although what you said to me that night hurt me, and a lot. I don't hate you for that. Riaz saw him with surprise in his expression. After all, that night was also my fault, right? No. Riaz shook her head as she cried with pity. And I was to blame. I should have valued you as I should. If I had known that you were suffering alone in silence, because of her. I would have done my best to help you. Issei heard very well when Riaz emphasized the word her. Indicating that they already know of the trauma that Rainer left him. As they know, he has no idea. I understand that you didn't purposely say what you wanted to say that night, but still. You didn't take it back, right? Issei spoke now with an expressionless face, as if she didn't have any emotion now. And that gave some afraid of Riaz and Kiba. They had never seen him make a face like that. And it's not true. Riaz instantly shook her head. And me. I was upset for no specific reason. I was upset by the fact that you never called me by my name, even if I asked you to. And that made me feel like you didn't care, but. You were afraid, right? Asked Riaz, still with tears, and Issei was surprised by what was said. I'm sorry if I reminded you of Rainer on more than one occasion. I didn't know you were suffering, believe me. Upon hearing that, Issei would close his eyes for a moment and then open them, having her expressionless face again. I believe you and I understand. What Issei said surprised Riaz. And before she says anything, the boy continued talking. If you know all that, then do you want to know why all of the above? Why I didn't call you by your name? Why I didn't want to get close to you or the others romantically? Do you want to know why? Well, it was like you said it, I was scared. Issei lowered his head a little when saying that while she let out a couple of tears. But she dried them and then raised her head and looked the Redeed straight in the eyes again. I was afraid that you guys would do something similar to what she did to me. Deep down I knew that you were not bad and that you would be incapable of cruelly hurting me. But I was afraid that if she got closer than she should or tried to lay a finger on you, you would get angry with me and look bad on me. After all, you always approached me with those games and jokes that I took more as a joke from you, without knowing that you approached me like that because you loved me. See, how do you? How did I know? Issei interrupted Riaz and sighed, still expressionless. But with a hint of pain in his expression. I rambled a lot about that matter, and it wasn't difficult to know that you, Akeno-san, Asia, Kaneko-chan and Zenobia were romantically interested in me, but. Even with that, and even when they approached me like that ways and fought over me, they never declared that they loved me or anything like that. Their fights and games only made me more doubtful, and they unconsciously opened the wound that Rainer left in my heart. Issei said that last thing, putting his hand to his chest, where his heart is. And that's why, unfortunately, I don't think things will go back to the way they were before, in the case of our ties and our relationship. What? Riaz froze upon hearing those words, and felt his heart ache. Why? Issei. I love you. I love you more than anything. I loved you too. What Issei said only caused the Redeed to cry a little more now. Since he understood that he no longer loves her now, and that before he did love her. But not now. I fell in love with you even before Razor. Even when you gave me your first kiss and moved into my house, you never told me that you loved me. And I took all that as your way of showing me gratitude for saving you from your arranged engagement. Issei would then look at his left arm. I said everything for you. I fought even when I was hurt and tired to protect you. I gave my arm so I could free you from that commitment and you could be with whoever you wanted. I endured hellish training to become stronger for you. I wouldn't have minded even dying, knowing that I could save you so that you can continue living. But in the end, what is all that for? You never said you loved me, and I couldn't tell you what I felt for fear that you wouldn't feel the same. Even if you hadn't mocked Rainer for a confession like that, believe me, a gentle rejection without any sign of cruelty or mockery, it's enough to break my heart. Sobbed Issei. I'm sorry. I should have told you what I felt, but. Riaz covered her face with her hands, trying to dry her tears. I was also afraid. It made me sad to think that you didn't love me. It even made me sad that the others were ahead of me and I couldn't be with you because I already had someone. I understand that I was a coward and selfish with you, but. I don't hate you. Issei said, interrupting Riaz. But I don't love you like before. What she said left the Redeed paralyzed. After that night. I convinced myself for a while that no one would ever love me. I suffered several nights because of that. I was about to succumb to that cruel reality, but. Issei would lower his head a little and put on an expressionless half-smile. In that moment of sadness, loneliness and darkness. The person she least expected arrived, who became the light in the darkness in which she was. Valery. What Issei said left Riaz and Kiba speechless. That night, I was about to succumb to madness, and Rainer was in my mind, telling me to my face that no one would love me and that I am a failure, but. Valery suddenly appeared, he heard my problems. And when I declared I didn't want to go back to you, she offered me to go with her. I accepted more out of an act of cowardice and desperation than anything else. But in the end, I don't regret my decision. Issei. Riaz continued to tear up hearing all that. Since I left with Valery, she took care of me and tried to cheer me up in my moments of depression. Issei would put on a half smile when saying that. Valery was much more than the battle lover I met before. She cares about others, she knows what the suffering caused by those close to you is. And it was to her that I revealed all my problems. I would have expected a mockery from her for seeing me so pathetic for unrequited love, but instead, she understood me and hugged me, telling me to let go of everything I had. Issei would remember that day that he told Valery about Rainer. And without knowing it, over time. I started to feel something for her that I never thought I would feel for her. I fell in love with Valery. And I love her. What the brunette said left Riaz and Kiba speechless, who couldn't believe what they heard. Did Issei love the girl who looked down on him and who is her natural enemy? It seemed impossible to believe, but seeing Issei's happy and loving expression was enough for both of them to understand that Issei was serious. Did you tell him? Asked Riaz, with her head lowered and a gloomy expression. Yes. Issei affirmed. And what makes me even happier is that she loves me too. And we agreed to be together. Riaz only seemed to tremble slightly at what she heard. Like I told you before, I don't hate you for everything that happened. But I don't love you like before. Issei sighed. I have decided that I will return home. According to Azazel, we no longer have to run away. But nothing will be like before. Now we are just teammates. I understand. Riaz let out a couple of sobs even with her head down. And when he picked her up, he saw that he began to cry little by little. Tell me, are you happy with her? Issei nodded. I love her more than my own life. And I wouldn't hesitate to give my life for her. Even if she doesn't like that, I will do it without hesitation. Sob. It's okay after all. Riaz started crying a little harder than before. Nothing ties you to me or anything anymore. You are free. You can do whatever you want. But keep this in mind. Riaz wiped away the tears that kept coming in vain. I will never love another person. I prefer not to have someone to share my life with, knowing that I won't have that life with you. Issei felt sorry for Riaz, but he couldn't give her false hope of starting over. Everything he said was what he had to say. Although he was surprised that she didn't start a drama or anything like that after revealing her relationship with Valery, although at the same time he is not that surprised. Since Issei before, he sometimes imagined Riaz with another boy other than him, when he still believed that it was impossible for her to love him, and that if that case came to pass and she was happy with that person, he would have no reason to complain about it. Because it was not her destiny to be with her if that case arose. And apparently, she understood that. Riaz lost all rights to Issei's love. And now that he loves another girl, she couldn't do anything. He knows that he hurt Issei, made him remember a trauma that marked him all the time, and did not value her feelings, and because of that, she understood that he would not be happy with her. If Issei is now happy with Valery, well, she can only hope that Valery truly gives Issei that happiness that she couldn't. Issei would then go to see Kiba, her best friend. Where the blonde wasn't looking at the brunette with annoyance or anything because of what he said to Riaz. Kiba just looked at Issei with guilt on his face, and the brunette understood a little of why. And Riaz, seeing both of them looking at each other, decided to step aside so that they could both talk face to face. With her, Issei and Kiba would be facing each other, staring at each other without hostility, without anything. Did you protect everyone as you should? Issei asked, breaking the tense silence between the two. Yes. Kiba nodded. Even since you left and I trusted that you were still alive, I did not lower my sword on any occasion. I stood my ground for Butchu and the others. Because I know you would have done the same. I'm glad. Issei thanked, with an expressionless face. We will all fight together again. But as you know, nothing will be like before. I know. Kiba lowered his head slightly, with a small hint of sadness and regret in his expression. With that, Issei would look at both of them once more, and then turn around and return to the others. Azazel, Valery and company were even listening from afar to the conversation between Issei with Riaz and Kiba, thanks to their improved hearing. And there were certain reactions regarding the talk between the three young people. Although Azazel felt sorry for Riaz upon knowing that Issei no longer loves her, at the same time he was already imagining the reaction of the others if Issei tells them something similar. But at the same time he saw all this as something similar to a romantic novel where a couple separates due to an argument are similar. If this were a novel, Azazel wouldn't hesitate to give this one first place. Although Valery already knows from Issei that Riaz and the others did not do what they did on purpose, that does not take away from the fact that they hurt Issei and did not value him, all because of their foolish whim of not being able to confess to Issei. But even with that, Valery, like Issei, did not regret her decision that night. He never thought that after that chance meeting and how the events happened, that would be the moment that marked his new life, where he is now happy with Issei. And I wouldn't change that for the world. Hiroka, hearing that conversation and knowing that her sister also loves Issei, didn't know what to feel. But even though Issei said that he no longer loves Riaz like before, and that maybe that also applies to the otherwise, she doesn't want to imagine her sister's expression and reaction. But even so, Hiroka knew that Issei would still continue to protect Kaneko as she promised him, even if there was nothing between them. Lafay cried a little during the entire conversation, since Issei and Riaz were afraid to confess to each other for different reasons. And it was all of that caused this. Letting go of an old love is not easy, and you can only hope that he is happy, even if it is not with the person he previously thought he would be with. Lafay, even with all this, she began to see and feel something for Issei. For her, Issei was her idol and now a groupmate with whom she gets along well, but she can't help but see him differently. Could it be that? Tiamat was only calm the entire time during the conversation, but at the same time being somewhat curious about the topic of love. She'll have to think a little. When Issei returned with the others and stood in front of Azazel, she let out a deep understanding sigh. So how do you feel? Azazel asked, placing his hand on Issei's shoulder. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I'm fine. That's good. Azazel patted the boy on the head a couple of times. Issei. Valery speaks now, making the aforementioned see her is what you said true. Don't you regret coming with me? Even after everything that happened. Issei would then approach Valery and being in front of her. With one hand she took her waist, holding her to him, and her other hand was placed on the girl's cheek, making her blush at her daring movement. I don't regret anything. Valery, you were there when I needed help the most. If you hadn't been there, instead of loving you, I wouldn't be loving anyone right now. You were my light in that moment of darkness and loneliness. I won't change that for anything. Valery only felt his heartbeat even faster than before and felt his love for Issei grow even more than before. And with that, solitary tears of happiness came out of his eyes, and without caring that the others were present, he kissed the love of his life, even with tears of happiness in front of everyone. Issei did not hesitate to reciprocate said kiss while drying Valery's tears. The beautiful scene was seen by everyone. Whereas Azazel internally wished them both the best as well as Arthur and Biku. Kuroka, Lefei and Tiamat felt jealous when they saw that, but they left those two in their own time. And lastly, Riaz and Kibo also saw that from a distance. Where the Redeed only felt sad knowing that she lost him, maybe forever, while the blonde wished his friend the best with his new love, which is a true one. When the moving scene between the celestial couple ended, everyone accompanied Azazel who had to discuss the latest topics with Isaac Teeps and Shaltier Carmilla. Governor Azazel. For having saved our homeland and being able to get rid of the Sephiroth Grail issue. We Carmilla will be willing to accept peace with the Bible factions. Shaltier said, giving a slight bow. For my part, the Teeps will also accept peace with the Bible factions. So you also have our collaboration. Isaac, with a hand on his chest, also gave a slight bow when saying that. Well I'm glad to hear that. Azazel put on a half smile at that news. And he would exchange a handshake with both vampire leaders. Isaac Sama. The guards had arrived at the place, drawing the attention of their king. We already brought Valery Sama. With that, the guard stepped aside to let Valery pass, who still had a blank expression and smile. And the vampire approached her father who stood in front of her. Valery, due to your current condition and something agreed upon with Governor Azazel. You will represent the Teeps in the alliance, so you will go with Governor Azazel to settle in Kuo City in Japan. Oh? I see. So, we are at peace, and the disputes with the Bible factions are over, right? Valery asked with a small empty smile. And Isaac nodded to her question. Glad to hear it. And then, if I go with the Governor of the Fallen, will I be able to see Gasper? Isaac nodded. Yes. But another condition for going is that you let Governor Azazel and his organization give you some tests and exams regarding your Sephiroth Grail. So, that's all you have to do. Collaborate in his investigations to help you and represent the Teeps there, and everything is fine. I understand. Valery would look for a moment at Azazel and the young people next to her, and then look again at her father. Will I see you and Mama again? Isaac nodded. Yes. As long as you come accompanied by an escort given by Governor Azazel himself. I'm glad. After saying that, Valery bowed slightly to her father, as if saying goodbye to her. To then go to where Azazel, Issei and company were. And the vampiress gave them a slight bow. I will be under her care. Please take care of me. That's how it will be, young lady. Azazel told her with a half smile. Although Valery could sense that Azazel sounded a little excited when he said that. If you imagine, it's possible that this lazy governor is just excited to further investigate the Sephiroth Grail. Him and his mania for researching sacred gears, typical. Issei was a little surprised by Valery's blank expression, but she remembered that it is a side effect of taking one of the grails from her. With that, Issei would stand in front of the vampire and had to admit that she was even taller than Gasper, almost reaching Issei's head. And the boy with a friendly half smile extended his hand to the vampire to the empty surprise of her and the rest. Valery looked at him carefully. For some strange reason, she feels that she can trust him. Chestnut. Nice to meet you. I'm Haidu Issei. And I am Gasper's friend and senpai. Nice to meet you, Valery-san. Oh? Valery looked slightly surprised at what she heard and then put on an empty half smile. Yufufufu. I see. So, if you're his senpai, you must be his best friend, right? That's how it is. In fact, I taught him as best I could how to behave like a man and stop being fearful. The process is slow, but effective. Yufufufu. I see, that makes me happy. Valery smiled at what Issei said. So, it's also nice to meet you, Haidu Issei-san. You can just call me Issei if you want, Valery-san. Yufufufu. Then it's okay, Issei-san. Valery said smiling. And then she took the Sekiryute's hand as a sign of friendship and trust. Boy. I recommend that you limit the way you make friends a little, especially women. You don't want some to castrate you now, right? As Azazel said, Issei looked at the others and was a little scared to see how Valery, Tiamat and Kuroka had a face of jealousy and fake anger, while Lefei just made a face. Tender pout. Issei decided to listen to Azazel's advice and his survival instinct. If he wants to live or not have problems, he better keep his distance from the vampire. With everything clarified and having achieved an alliance with the vampires, Issei, Azazel and company prepared to return to Kuo. It was time to face the other. Completely unacceptable return to her bases, Rizavum with the greatest rage she had ever had in her life, hit the wall with such force that she created a hole in it. It wasn't until several minutes ago that they returned from Romania to their secret base, in an isolated area of the underworld that is neglected by both demons and fallen angels. They were isolated and sheltered from both territories. But the frustration and anger of Lucifer's son now seemed to be the biggest problem for his allies, and they don't blame him. Office's copy, Lilith, had betrayed them and left with the Securite and his friends. With this, his strength had been considerably reduced. Rizavum-sama, please calm down and let's continue with the operation. Euclid tried to calm the older Lucifer. But what he received in response was a blade of light that grazed his cheek and stuck into the wall. And said wound on Euclid's cheek burned a little, it wasn't serious, but it was somewhat annoying. Don't try to ask me to calm down Euclid, this is serious. Rizavum was now totally serious and angry like never before. Without Lilith, we are now greatly reduced in strength. Lilith was my ticket to not having to face the gods or Surziches and Ajuka, now we are limited. Everyone had to agree with Rizavum with what he said. Lilith was his ace up his sleeve to not have to fight even against the gods and the only two true super demons. Rizavum in the past was considered the third super demon back then before the civil war by the current government of the underworld will explode. Even his son, Rizavum, was at the level of several gods back then, being below Rizavum, Surziches and Ajuka. But with the passing of the millennia and having done nothing in all that time, both father and son began to lose power, becoming weaker and their powers weakening. Currently, both are at the Mao level, that demons and supreme class beings can arrive. And even with his sacred gear Canceler, Rizavum prefers to avoid fighting with the current mass, like Azazel, Michael and the gods of any rank. But now that Lilith is gone, if they want to achieve their objective, they must now be cautious and not start a direct confrontation against the strongest. Rizavum-sama. Nehema speaks now, drawing everyone's attention. If we want to achieve our goal, we must act now. We have to start the investigations and bring the evil dragons to fight in our place. We still have the Holy Grail as well as the Saint Cross, so we are not defeated yet. DSK. Okay. I accept Rizavum reluctantly. They must continue with the operation, now being more cautious. Rizavum. You and Euclid will be in charge of creating mass-produced Securite armor with the research of that gem. Nehema and I will take care of the evil dragons while I look for some contacts. As you say, father. In fact, I have something very interesting for research. Rizavum with an amused smile, pulls something out of his pocket. And to the surprise of his father and his companions, it was a blue gem that everyone recognized. Is that? Euclid was speechless at what he saw. That's how it is. It is one of the gems in Valery's armor. I thought it might be useful, so I took it. Flashback. Rizavum, with his Katsueki-thorn sword in hand, made a vertical slash. Valery reacted to that and quickly covered himself with his silver energy swords. The clash of the swords created a strong shock wave that spread out. Heard throughout the place. In this way, as Rizavum was the one who took Valery by surprise for a few moments, he managed to make her lose her posture for a few moments, so with a quick movement, Rizavum managed to launch a thrust against Valery, where she managed to avoid him by a hair. But even with that, Valery got a worrying crack in her helmet and that made her nervous. Be careful, Valery. Something tells me that the slightest cut you receive will be very serious for you even with the silver armor. I didn't expect a weapon that could cut through this armor like it was nothing. For Albion to say that so seriously, it means that he was serious. I see. Valery said mentally to his partner. Father and daughter saw each other for a few seconds, so that moments later they moved at a divine speed of flight and began a heated encounter with swords, in which it could be seen that Rizavum had the advantage since Valery was only dedicated to defending himself. They were both somewhat exhausted, but they were still fighting as intensely as at the beginning. They both launched thrusts ready to split themselves in two. The sword blows left huge ditches in the ground and even made cuts that seemed to cut the air. After a while, both of them distanced themselves and began to point at each other with one hand while energies gathered in the palm. Rejeki Valery fired a huge torrent of silver energy with blue rays at Rizavum. A Hikyukari Rizavum for his part released a torrent of demonic light. The two torrents collided with each other and cancelled each other. The two Lucifers took flight again as their attacks flew back and forth. This is getting nowhere for both of us. Valery was just fighting to end this once and for all, but it seemed impossible. And Rizavum thought the same, although he found this a bit funny and wouldn't mind being like this for days. It was then that Rizavum noticed something on the floor. The object he had focused on was neither more nor less than one of the gems that had come loose when Valery's armor was destroyed, so he went down to pick it up. Maybe this will help us later. And Razavam was not wrong in his idea that this can help them. So I quickly put the gem away in his personal space and then get back to the fight. Then flash back, ha ha ha. Not bad, Razavam-sama. Euclid with a pleased tone, grabbed the gem to look at it analytically. I think I already have good ideas for my power as a false issei. If the original has the power of its rival, then so do I. Euclid began to look at the gem with such longing, as if it were the most special gift that the world has given him. Good. You guys take care of the rest, and if we're going to start with this, it must be now. And Euclid. The aforementioned stopped by to see Rizavam. Tell me, did you locate it? That's right, Rizavam-sama. That being is somewhere, isolated in the human world. But I know where he is. Rizavam smiled at what Euclid said. It looks like he'll have to get new bodyguards. A new Cows Brigade, now known as Clippeth. Even if they have lost an important element in their plans, that will not stop them from achieving their goal. Several hours later. Issei, Azazel, Tiamat, Office, Lilith, Valery and his, Ria's and Kiba's group, finally arrived in Japan. Obviously instead of using a direct transportation circle, everyone opted to fly back to take the rest of the day. And more because everyone knew what could happen once Issei, Valery and their group arrive at the Haidu residence. Obviously, Azazel on the way reported everything that happened in Romania to the Alliance and that he was going back to Issei. To Kuo. And apparently, they will be waiting for them at the Haidu residence. After several hours of flying, everyone was finally in front of the Haidu residence, plus it was already getting dark. Issei for some reason felt nostalgic when he saw his remodeled house again. He feels like he hasn't come for like a year, when in reality he was gone for almost 2 months. And obviously when they arrived at the main entrance, everyone except Azazel was surprised to see that all the remaining members of the Grimory group were present waiting for them at the main entrance. There were even Irina, Ravel and Sona with their entire group. But obviously, when everyone was able to focus on Issei arriving together with Azazel, instantly, there were several reactions. Sob. Issei-san. Asia was the first to go towards the chestnut tree regardless of the rest. And Issei feeling that hug, although internally I miss Asia and everything else about her. Just like Ria's in Romania, she didn't feel happy. She only felt a blank nostalgia. Well, the others didn't know if they should welcome Issei with a hug as well. They are also glad that she is back, but for some strange reason, they felt like they had no right to talk to her. Asper, I'm glad to see you again. The Dampiro, upon hearing that voice, sees how Valery was next to Azazel and was surprised. I didn't expect that he would see her again, but he was still happy. Although he was a little worried about Valery's empty expression, but he could still feel her feeling in her. The Valery. Gasper sobbed a few times, being happy to see her. Glad to see you again. I really wanted to see you too. Valery approached Gasper until she was in front of him and hugged him without warning. Yufufufufu. You've grown a lot, but you're still a little short. Still, I'm glad you're okay. Yes, even though I became a demon. I'm fine. Yes, she had already heard it. Valery would pat Gasper's head. It seems like they are taking very good care of you. Yes, I also made friends and colleagues. I won't be alone anymore. I know. Issei-san told me everything on the way here. Gasper was a little surprised by what Valery said, but still. He hugged her back in a way that showed that he missed her. Excuse me. Issei, with an expressionless face that surprised everyone, left the ex-nun aside and went to see the others. Whereupon seeing Ravel, he did not hesitate to approach her, and when he was in front of her, he hugged her without prior notice to the surprise and embarrassment of the Phoenix side. I'm glad you're okay, Ravel. And Ravel sobbed for a moment, then, unable to hide the feeling. He let out everything he had as he cried, he's an idiot. Issei-sama is bad for being gone, I hate him. Even though he said all that, Ravel hugged the Sekiryuite, as if not wanting to let go, while he let out all his worry. When the younger Phoenix let out all her worry and so on, Issei felt as if someone had hit him on the head, and when he turned to see who it was. Fool. That's worrying and making us believe that you died. Saji, although he sounded upset while he was crying, internally he was happy to see his rival again. I'm also glad to see you again, Haidu-kun. Sona walked a little closer with her arms crossed while she adjusted her glasses. But I'm going to tell you that you will have to work with the student council for a while to make up for your absence from school. Sorry Kaichu, please don't give me complicated jobs, I'll do anything, but please give me my time, Issei begged the Citri with his hands together while he was lying on the ground to give drama to her plea. Which made many laugh. He acts like a child. Haneko would end up exchanging glances with Kuroka by chance, creating a somewhat tense atmosphere. Ni, how long Shiranaya? Kuroka made a cat gesture in greeting, but Kaneko instantly avoided eye contact with her. Which made Kuroka a little sad, although she expected that. Obviously everyone else, seeing Valery and his group in the place, didn't know what to say, and that's where the discomfort began. Although some opened their eyes in horror when they saw a certain being in the place. Serena's somewhat exaggerated scream made those who did not know about Office's situation put themselves on guard. Even though everyone knows that Office was betrayed by the Cows Brigade, her being here gave them a bad feeling and they feared the worst. Although everyone could notice that there was another girl next to Office who was exactly like her, only with her hair tied in a ponytail. And that in itself made them all even more nervous, including fear. Hey, calm down. Issei raised his hands and stood between Office and Lilith to prevent them from attacking them. Pay attention, brat, she came because we allowed it and she has no intention of attacking. Azazel also stood between them. What's more, if that were the case no one here would beat her, nor together would we achieve such a feat. Azazel, they better have a clear explanation. Sona knew that Office isn't bad enough, but she knows that she was one of the leaders of Cows Brigade. She is the enemy of all factions today. And there is, and all of that is related to Issei, Valery and her group. Everyone else looked at those mentioned who felt somewhat uncomfortable by the looks of a person. I have discussed it with Surziches, Michael, Auden and Yusaka. And everyone is already aware of the matter. We will discuss the topic of Rizavam in a few days. With that said, Azazel had finished informing all the young people present of the current situation. To say that everyone was surprised is to say an understatement. They were extremely surprised and at the same time terrified by everything that happened in Romania. The last two descendants of Lucifer, Graphia's brother and one of Adam's lovers, planned to destroy this world and the next world with the apocalyptic imperial beast, 666, Trihixa. That in itself was crazy. Although they also did not expect that the new Cows Brigade would create a new Office and that it was Office herself who convinced her copy, Lilith, to come with them. Thus leaving the organization. At the end, after the big briefing of everything that happened, everyone decided to prepare for dinner before everyone went their own way. Obviously Ravel declared her verdict to return to the Haidu residence when she saw that Issei returned and it did not take him more than an hour to bring his things back and return. To reinstall. Obviously before the dinner started, Azazel and Valery noticed how Issei had some kind of talk with Asia, Akeno, Kaneko and Zenobia in one part of the room. And thanks to his enhanced hearing, they were able to know that Issei told them the same thing that he said to Riaz, only with certain differences in how they expressed themselves to him. He didn't want to sound rude or cruel to them, but even so, his declaration that possibly nothing would be the same as before only made them feel bad in their own way respectively and having to accept that everything Issei said was true. In addition to finding out about his relationship with Valery. After dinner, with the inclusion of the new residents in the house who are Valery and his group with Tiamat, Office, Lilith and Valery. Rooms were quickly found for everyone, which didn't take long. This large house still has many spare unused rooms. Obviously Lefebvre moved everyone's belongings from her personal space in order to begin settling into her new home. Obviously it was already decided that Issei and Valery would share the boys' room, apparently they had already become accustomed to sleeping together. Which made the others jealous and sad respectively, but they still didn't say or object to anything. From now on, everyday life at the Haidu residence was going to be different. Valery Lucifer was finishing showering in the bathroom in Issei's room. And to think that that room is as big as a living room in a regular house. These demons and their luxuries. Valery, despite having lived a few years with Razavam and his mother before fleeing, she was not used to those luxuries. Even when the Lucifer family broke away from the current demonic society, apparently Rizavam and Razavam still liked luxuries. Enough thinking about that. Valery shook her head several times to forget about that. She dried herself as best she could and then covered herself with a towel and stood in front of the mirror next to the sink. To get the finishing touches on her grooming. It was then that the memory of what happened in Romania came back to her mind, being the moment when Rizavam and Razavam were going to tell her family story according to them. And Valery didn't want those two to say anything. Before she wouldn't have cared about that, but now. Valery, since she began her relationship with Issei, internally she began to be afraid of certain things that could make Issei see her badly and not love her anymore, and that. It's something she doesn't want. For the current Valery, Issei was the most important thing to her. Without him, her life no longer has color or light like before. She distanced even her mother from her life, believing that it was best for her to forget that she never had her. But despite that, there was not a single day that Valery did not stop thinking about her and how he misses her. Only with Azazel, Tobio, Lavinia, Natsum and Kauki did she always have that feeling of family that she never wanted to show until now. But even she knows that. I must tell him. Valery had already made up his mind about him. And whatever happens when I tell him, he will accept it. Issei Haidu was sitting on the edge of his bed looking at the photo album of his family and friends, as if remembering old times. Feeling very nostalgic. He was dressed in shorts and a black flannel to sleep in, and he had already fallen asleep. Showered first because Valery allowed him. And as I continue checking the photo album, I managed to find an empty place, since more photos can be added to this album, and I place a new photo in the empty place. One in which he was together with Valery, Kuroka, Lefay, Arthur, Biku, Fenrir, Tiamat and Office in their house in the mountains after the battle in the underworld. Issei sighed with a smile, then closed the album and put it in the drawer of his large nightstand next to the bed. Whereas he did that, he heard the bathroom door of his room open, indicating that Valery had already left. And when he turned to see her, he was speechless at what he saw. In front of him was Valery, who was wearing a transparent white nightgown, and through it you could see that she was not wearing a bra, but her legs were panties. Obviously the girl looked a little embarrassed, but she looked determined in what she decided. Issei was still stunned by the incredible image he had in front of him. And his nervousness and anxiety increased even more when he saw that Valery approached him, sitting next to him on the edge of the bed. Valery. Issei. Tell me something. Do you love me? Valery asked, with a somewhat sad expression. Something that disconcerted Issei. Why are you asking me that question? Asked Issei, a little nervous. I just want to know. What Valery said only confused him even more. So tell me, do you love me? With all my being, Valery. Issei responded, serious and determined to what I say. No matter what I am? Even if I'm a mistake? His words from him only confused and missed Issei. What did he mean by mistake? And I don't understand, but… Still. Issei. Valery interrupted Issei from what he was going to say. There's something I didn't tell you about myself. And it is with respect to my biological family. To my mother and my father. Issei was surprised by what he heard, and even more so because he noticed that Valery forced herself to say the word father. And that was when she remembered the conversation in Romania and managed to grasp that this must be important to her. What happened? Asked Issei. How do you know? I am half human thanks to my mother, and I am half demon because… my father. Valery lowered his head, with his hair hiding his face. But unlike any other hybrid. My mother never loved Razivam. He just kidnapped her from her and he forced her to have me. Force? Issei tried to find meaning in what he heard. Until she was finally able to find him and open her eyes without being able to believe it. Did that guy? Valery nodded. Razivam raped her and kept her in his care until I was born. Issei couldn't believe what she was hearing. When I reached a certain age and found out what happened. And despite everything my mother suffered, she never hated me. Valery let out several solitary tears. Well, he remembered those days. She raised me in the best way in that place, and only with her could I smile. When Razivam beat me while training me, my mother protected me from Razivam's mistreatment. He only wanted more descendants of Lucifer for some time. To achieve what they want, while my mother only wanted a son to care for and love. Not caring even if I was the result of raping her, she continued to care for her. Issei listened almost in disbelief to the story of Valery and his family. Something told her that she had suffered before, but she never thought that she had gone to these extremes. Issei had to admit that Valery's mother was someone very kind, despite the mistreatment she suffered. Having a child who is the result of rape, and despite all that, loving him as if none of that mattered. That mother undoubtedly had a big loving heart. And then, one day. Without expecting it, I woke up Albion. Valery continued with the story of him. When Razivam and Rizavam found out that I possessed a hacker Yuku, they called me a miracle or an unexpected move of the world. Even so, they both became obsessed with it and wanted to turn me into something to use for their plans. Even Razivam planned to force my mother to have another child to see if she would give her someone as miraculous as me. But Valery clenched his fist slightly. He didn't want her to suffer with that again. He wasn't going to let them use my mother as a vile object. So I confronted them as best I could with my own strength and what Albion could give me, and we fled from that place. Rizavam and Razivam didn't bother to chase us, so they sent their guards, but I took care of them. Even as a child, I could fight a high class. We managed to escape for almost nothing. My mother was exhausted and fainted, so I carried her as best I could, and we arrived at a certain place in the underworld, where I met Azazel. Issei was surprised again at what he heard. Since until now, she didn't know how Azazel met Valery and took her under her tutelage, apparently giving her a better upbringing than that bastard Razivam gave her. But then what? When I met him and he told me that he wouldn't hurt us and that he would help us. I trusted him. Valery continued with his story. I accepted Azazel's proposal to me, but I only asked him for one thing before that. And it would be. I asked him to erase my mother's memory. Forgetting that she ever had me and that she suffered because of me. Issei was speechless at what Valery said. I know she was selfish, but I didn't want to involve her in this. Valery wiped away the few tears that came out of her and then looked at Issei again. This time with few tears coming out. Knowing this, tell me Issei, do you really love me? Even if I'm a mistake? The result of a grape. Can you love someone like that? Valery closed her eyes with grief and sadness. Because I will understand if you don't. She couldn't finish her words because without warning from her, Issei gave her a warm and comforting hug that surprised her. Issei. Valery, I don't care what you are, because I love you the same way. She sobs, how can you love a being like me? I am the result of grape. Because of my selfishness and fear, I pushed my mother away. I even threatened and belittled you when I met you. To me, none of that matters now. Issei interrupted Valery and would stare into her eyes. For me, Valery, you are not the descendant of Lucifer, nor the result of grape. I only see a very beautiful and determined girl who wants to help others. And you are my savior. Issei took Valery's hand and she blushed at her words. If it's true, I admit one thing. From the beginning I hated you like you had no idea, but that was because I didn't know what you were really like. I didn't know everything you went through and suffered. But that night, when you were there when I needed help, you showed me that you were much more than I thought I knew you were. Issei would wipe away the few tears Valery had and she continued talking. As I told you before, Valery. You became the light in the darkness and loneliness into which I was sinking. For you, I overcame Rainer and decided not to seclude myself, nor flee anymore. Even if you are the descendant of Lucifer, the result of a grape and my predestined rival. For me, you are only you, Valery. Even after listening to everything you told me, I will never hate you or abandon you. Because I love you. Hearing those words, Valery felt as if his heart was beating even harder than normal, as more tears came out of his eyes, along with a small smile of happiness. Issei felt like an idiot for making her cry even if it wasn't from sadness. He doesn't like to see girls cry, whether from happiness or sadness. Even so, Issei tried to wipe Valery's tears in vain. Where Valery out of pure impulse kissed Issei, showing all the love and desire that she had saved. Although Issei was surprised at first, he reacted immediately and returned said kiss, this time using the experience he gained in this relationship. Due to some games he had with Valery, he knew how to play with the girl's tongue to make her moan. And seeing that he achieved his goal was enough for. Valery could tell that Issei was already getting into the mood. Still continuing with the hungry kissing session, he felt a tingling in her crotch. Time to act. With a little sanity he had left, Valery pushed Issei until they were lying on the bed while they continued their kissing session. But after seconds, they both stopped to take a breath, where Issei seemed to recover some of his reasoning when he sensed what they were going to do. Valery. I know you want this, but. You were sad and depressed just now. And I don't want to take advantage of that. No, please. Issei. I really want this. Issei was speechless at what Valery said. In fact, he would be lying if he said that he didn't want this either, but he thought that Valery's mental and emotional state should be taken as first priority. Although, maybe she already wanted to do this before, but apparently, meeting her father and grandfather again made her have an internal fear that Issei hates her because of the way she was born. I won't let him think that. Letting herself go, the celestial couple returned to her heated kissing session. Where they separated after a minute and then. Valery took off her transparent nightgown, revealing what Issei saw on some occasions. Valery's breasts were worthy of being called a masterpiece. Even Issei knew that they were a little bigger than Akeno's. The balance between pink nipples and the rest was. Seeing that she nodded at him made him understand that. He did not hesitate to touch one of them, they were undoubtedly soft and flexible. Seeing the girl's expression, it made the side of him that came out during hex-free. Sensitive Valery. Issei's playful tone surprised Valery, but for some reason it turned her on. Issei didn't think twice, and she took one of the girl's nipples in her lips. Upon feeling the new sensation, she gave a slight scream due to her inexperience. Valery tried not to moan, but the way Issei licked and sucked them, in addition to the play of his hand with the other breast was. Valery could sense that Issei was liking this, since the way he attended to her breasts, it was proof that this idiot still loves big breasts. Feeling one of her nipples being bitten and the other being pinched, made Valery let out a bigger moan. Seeing that Valery was moaning uncontrollably made Issei excited. Valery, what do you want to do now? Valery tried to calm her excitement while she felt unable to face Issei's gaze, those eyes that now turned green like a reptile. She wanted. She moved her hand until she caressed Issei's crotch. Issei, even feeling a lump that made her red with embarrassment, peeked an eye. Issei walked away from her and sat on the bed, as if indicating that it was his thing. Valery saw him for a moment and then nodded determinedly. Issei, for his part, took off the flannel he was wearing and left the rest on, as if telling Valery that it is his task. And that's what Valery did, she kissed Issei for a few seconds and then went to that area. Time to act and. Valery, seeing what was going to take her virginity, already ready for everything, scared her slightly. Wow, how strange that part of the man was. Okay. Here I go. Valery stuck out his tongue and gave the first lick, one that gave Issei a slight tingle, but he continued with her work. Valery felt that. He licked it again, this time thinking that he was licking a popsicle. Up, down. The movement, although clumsy and timid at first, gained more confidence when she felt that her lover liked it. Seeing that Issei gave slight grunts and exciting moans made Valery excited, she passed her hand to her crotch to calm the tingling she had. Feeling how wet it was surprised her. Could she be a pervert? Valery. I think licking is no longer enough. How Valery blushed at that implication. Did I swallow hard and look at what I should put in her mouth? Goat. He took it in her hand and opened her mouth and then put it in. It was a strange sensation, but why does he excite her? He started to move his head, he knew what he should do. He knows the theory. He moved his head slowly to get used to it, little by little he picked up more speed. He even started moving his tongue to give greater pleasure. Valery. And I never thought you were that type. Even with that, Valery shook his head with more energy. And then leave it for a moment and play with that pair below. Which surprised Issei that Valery was so daring. Did she turn her into a pervert? Obviously as the seconds passed, Valery stopped what he was doing and put Issei's member back into her mouth. Valery, hearing Issei's moans and grunts, knew what she liked and what she didn't. He played that exchange game for several minutes and Valery had already gained confidence and apparently Issei is already close to the limit. Valery then had an idea come to his mind and he blushed at such a daring idea, but he decided to do it. Issei watched as Valery put his member between her breasts. Wait a minute. Is this what he meant? Do you know him as a paser? Seeing and hearing her reaction, the girl felt greater excitement and seeing that he enjoyed her made her feel well, to the point of saying that she was more confident in her own condition as a woman. Issei, let it out. Don't hold it back. Valery spoke in a sensual way. Damn the move he makes, because she feels good. Although Issei has never experienced this before, she knew that she had great stamina, but Issei couldn't contain it, she let out everything she had contained about Valery. Who was surprised. Valery looked at the liquid on her with curiosity and some embarrassment. He saw the texture of it and then licked it. Seeing how she cleaned her trail of semen with her tongue was. Valery smiled a little amused when she saw that Issei was already ready for another round. I hope you can last several rounds after this one. Issei blushed at Valery's implication. I would be lying if I said I didn't expect that. Okay. Issei. Valery got on the bed, but not before taking off her panties and then lying down and showing her most secret spot. See how humid it was. Worth seeing. Be my first time. Hi. Issei was also a little nervous, but he still didn't back down. Issei settled between her legs, seeing how nervous she was made him remember that Valery is different from her. She is a girl who, although she has character, is tender and shy with those sheets closer. Seeing her blue eyes, seeing how she looked at him made him understand that she really loved him. Valery felt that every part of her body was tense. She had heard that the first time. It hurts and. Valery. She snapped out of her trance and looked at Issei. Don't worry. It will only be a second. Issei took her hand and she held it tightly, as if gaining strength. Valery. I love you. The girl smiled with a few tears and I love you. Saying that, Issei kissed her. After that, he began to insert his member into her. Ngh. Feeling something foreign to her body enter was annoying. Feeling that her purity was reached made her prepare herself, just one push and feeling that her purity was completely torn apart made her scream a little. It hurts a lot. But that pain was proof that finally she and Issei were. She smiled despite the pain as she hugged Issei, who was trying to give her time to get used to it. Well, the blood that was proof of having lost her virginity stained the sheets. Seeing how Issei kissed her and tried to calm her made Valery smile. Without a doubt, she couldn't have seen a better man chosen to fall in love with. She felt happy to love someone like that, but envy the first one who was with him. That doesn't matter anymore. Issei began to kiss Valery's neck, who was moaning like never before. Could he be sensitive in that place? Valery was feeling more comfortable now. There was a slight pain, but it would pass. She knows that Issei must be holding on and she doesn't want to prohibit him from doing that anymore. She looked at him and she gave him the nod he expected. Issei knew that she was doing it so that he wouldn't hold back anymore. Remember, slowly and carefully. She should let him get used to it. Slow start, she complained a little but she was normal. Valery felt a mix between pain and pleasure. And the pleasure was gaining ground. A lot of ground since she was beginning to desire more speed. Valery's moans made Issei understand that she could go a little faster. Valery was now moaning without signs of pain, feeling the pleasure of being a woman was something I wanted since they both formalized their relationship. To be his and no one else's. Valery felt how Issei played with her breasts in the middle of the movement. She even felt how he played with her nipples that were hardening from the contact. He gripped the sheets tightly, the pleasure was taking away his judgment. She feels good, it feels incredible. Issei felt how the inside of her not only became tighter, but was wetter and warmer. Seeing her with that expression, those tears that now didn't seem to matter to the woman, made him remember why he loves this woman. She was like a star in the darkest night, beautiful and mysterious. A star that would even shine in the dawn. The star of tomorrow. She was his star, his and no one else's. That feeling made Issei go faster, and Valery screamed with pleasure. Seeing how Issei looked at her, he noticed that he didn't want to give her to anyone, that she was his, and that was how it was, she loved him and only him. Valery felt that something was going to. He was close to. I say. I'm going to. It was Valery's first time and she was going to have an orgasm. Was she a pervert or did Issei's look make her? Valery. Issei was also nearby, it seems so. Where? Inside. Don't worry, even if I'm half human, I still have a low birth rate. Valery grabbed his legs around Issei's hips. Do it. I want it. Issei didn't put any buts, really. If one day it happens and they are still somewhat young, he was going to accept it. He gave the last movements, Valery felt that she was about to. Issei. Valery felt how her last movement brought her to the first orgasm of the night. Issei hugged her while she felt her body trying to calm the convulsions made by the wave of pleasure. Valery stayed like that for several seconds and then finally calmed down, he felt that her body was no longer responding to him. She felt in the clouds, so to speak. Issei kissed Valery's neck and she moaned at the touch. Fine, if that's how she wants to play. Valery approached Issei's neck and kissed him on that area with such force that he left a mark. Issei looked at her surprised and she smiled graciously. And so? Well, it's only fair. You kissed my neck. But don't leave a mark, you know this won't go away overnight. Valery smiled more, damn it. He loves that side of him, but it drives him crazy. Now I have to. Whoa, Issei felt as if he had been turned around and when he realized, it was now Valery who was on top and he was on the bottom. Valery. I want another round. Valery looked at him with an expression of tenderness that was not holy. That look. Joe, I see you're ready for another round, my love. Valery felt that he was ready again, even with her change of position, he was still inside her. Good, shall we continue? 1 second, at least give me 10 minutes. Issei was a little nervous, and it's not that she minds continuing until she drops. But seeing how she smiled at him in a not so holy way. Oh shit, she just woke up a monster, or in this case, a dragon. Valery. Issei. He doesn't sleep today. Valery's response made Issei understand that. It will be a miracle to walk tomorrow. But that is the price of loving an insatiable woman who is not only Lucifer's descendant and his rival as a celestial dragon, but she is his star of tomorrow. The Hex will act lasted a couple more hours, and with that, the celestial couple finally succumbed to exhaustion and fell asleep. But in another place, practically in a black space where there was nothing but darkness around him. And to think that we would end up like this after the relationship between our bearers. Drake appeared in that dark space with his dragon form. And in front of him, a white light was present that when it dissipated, Albion was seen in the place, also in the form of his dragon. I say the same, even so. I think this was for the best. Now I remember more about the past and how it all started. Do you remember that, Drake? How can I forget? Knowing that there was a being capable of resisting my most lethal flames filled me with emotion. Drake laughed nostalgically when remembering those times. It's true. I was also excited to know that there was someone capable of withstanding my poison. Without a doubt, we behave as if we were children. It's true, for us, the world back then was nothing more than our playground. And one that by disturbing the biblicals, we ended up this way. Although I'm not complaining, I like my current life together with Issei. I'm wondering the same. I wouldn't change this life with Valery for anything. Still, Drake, to the important thing. Albion put aside the talks of the past to now move on to the topic they decided to discuss. You noticed it, right? Our powers. Yes, I also noticed the same thing. Drake remembered how Issei was able to use penetrate for a moment. It was a single use. That must have been temporary, but it is proof that our original powers are not lost. Yes, I noticed it too. But why is that? Albion asked himself, trying to find an answer to all this. I think we have an idea. Another light was present in the place, and when it dissipated, Lux and Helena were seen in the middle of both celestial dragons. Lux, Helena. It's good to see you after so long in your true form, Albion. Helena greeted as she reminisced about old times. It is an honor to meet you, Welsh dragon, Drake Gotch. Lux gave a slight bow to the red dragon who nodded at her greeting. With all that, what did you mean by saying that they know what's going on? Asked Albion, returning to the topic. You see, some time ago we discovered some unexpected changes in the divine dividing matrix. It was data that could not be used, and that was what we remembered when you told us about your other two abilities. We didn't say anything until now since we wanted to make sure that our theory was true, and apparently it was. Since the relationship between Issei-san and Valery-chan began, there were changes in both the divine dividing and the boosted gear. Drake looked in disbelief at Helena who continued. Because both of them are always together and the two inner worlds of both sacred gears are united, it was not difficult to also go check the boosted gear array and discover the same changes in it as in the divine dividing. Strangely, we believe that the reason why both of them were able to use penetrate and reflect respectively, although for a little while, was because the seal of both skills was temporarily released for a single use. And we think the reason for that is because of your understanding talks with Albion. See how? Both celestial dragons couldn't believe what they had heard. Was there a trick to unlock them? Were their talks and making peace the key? It was crazy to believe that, but… that god. Miserable bearded man. I would like to burn him if he were still alive and had my body. It's true. He makes us suffer for 2 millennia because of that curse on our souls and the sacred gears. And it's just so that we can understand each other so we can recover our powers. Intolerable decrepit god, nobody makes fun of the celestial dragons. Heavens, heavens. Let's not listen to the barbarities of Drake-san and Albion-san. They are a bad example. Helena put her hand on her head, as if giving a drama. Anyway, we already know the key to how to unlock them. So we should focus on it. And it better be quick, there isn't much time left. Adieu. Lux and Helena smiled sadly at what Albion had sensed. And Drake noticed it too. I see. It's almost time. Valery will surely be sad when he finds out. It's normal, Albion. We are only memories of what we were in life. It is natural that as we are only fragments, one day we are destined to disappear. Helena knew this, and that is why she asked me to also go see the matrix of the boosted gear. We wish to leave this as a parting gift to Issei and Valery. They know that they will both miss them, right? Both nodded to what Drake said, who for a few moments remembered Elsha and Belzerd and what he experienced with them. Without a doubt, the 2 best carriers he had in the past. I will never forget them. Well, let's focus on what we must do to unlock those powers. Helena spoke to leave aside the sad atmosphere and get back to what's important. We don't know if in the short time we have left, we will be able to unlock their 2 abilities respectively. But at least you have to make them get the first ones, the others. They prefer to keep them saved even, right? Yes. At least until Issei is ready to use that fire. The same goes for Valery with my poison. Well, let's start. Let's take advantage of the fact that Issei will be free for a few more days before returning to school. Everyone agreed with what Luck said. 5 days have passed since Issei and company returned and resettled at the Haidu residence. During all that time, everyone was waiting for the actions of the factions of each of the mythologies. There is great confusion in the underworld, heaven and among the gods of other mythologies due to the appearance of Rizavam. Because of him. He is planning to bring chaos to the world using the evil dragons, as well as bringing back the legendary beast, 666. Where he said that his plan is to attack the other world. The main gods of each of the mythologies consider this as the most dangerous situation of all time in their history. It has been decided that the factions allied with each other would cooperate to take measures against Rizavam, Livan, Lucifer and Klepeth. This is about to become a world order problem that would even affect religions and beyond everyone's imagination. Since then, Rizavam and his men have not taken any action, but each of the factions and their crucial locations have not lowered the alert level yet. Obviously, a report was given to the entire alliance about the return of the Securite Haidu Issei. Denying some things clarified by the hero faction, thus forgiving him for his past actions, but that he would also be under surveillance like the hacker Yuku, Valery Lucifer and his group. Who could have had their names cleared, but who would still be watched. Currently, it is late at night and several people gathered at Kuo Academy. The members of the Gremory group, the members of Citri, Ravel, Issei, Tiamat, Valery and her group, Azazel, the nun Griselda, Irina, the Joker Dulio, /Dog Tobio Icus, Lavinia, Natsum and Kauki were also present. Sarair Bale, Sakara Gares and the first son Wukong. All gathered here. This is an incredible meeting. As if all the famous people and fighters from each faction fighting on the front lines were here. How are the higher-ups going to respond to this? Sona asked Azazel, who decided to speak. Since this incident is not something we can take lightly or ignore, even those who were not cooperating with us until now agree to discuss this. Everyone sensed that it seems that the VIPs of each mythology are being very cautious about the incident that Rizavam caused right now. That bastard Rizavam is trying to bring chaos to this world and the next with his dangerous ideas. He caused enormous destruction in the vampire territory that we cannot ignore. Azazel sighed. There is even a radical opinion of a certain mythology that would think twice before involving its military forces in this matter. The chief gods like Odin and Zeus are warning the mythologies in some way. But I don't know what will happen if a terrorist attack bigger than this incident happens. After all, the evil dragons that are considered dangerous in every mythology are wreaking havoc at once. And the one who leads them is the son of Lucifer. Even those who saw the previous incident with the monster crises in the underworld as something out of their interest feel that this incident is a serious problem. If the 666 is brought back and starts a fight with the Securiushente, Great Red, the world could collapse due to the circumstances of that fight. Everyone was stunned by Azazel's confession. If the Great Red starts a battle against the 666 Trihexa, the world could take an enormous amount of damage. No wonder the higher-ups of each of the factions are making preparations for this. The world could have received a lot of damage if Great Red and Office had faced each other in battle. However, that did not happen. The Chaos Brigade leaders until now had been tricking Office and using her, but they didn't let her fight Great Red because they knew she was dangerous. But now it's different. Rizavam clearly said that he would make Great Red and the Trihexa fight each other in order to defeat the Sekiryushinte. No one can imagine what would happen to the dimensional gap if the Great Red were to leave, but obviously it wouldn't be for nothing. Well. The factions that had not been helpful until now and were simply observing the situation because their opinion was. If the Chaos Brigade is doing terrorist acts with the three Bible factions as their main target, the three Bible factions must be the ones take care of them. However, even though they had gone into hiding, I learned that the superiors of each faction know about the danger called Rizavam Live and Lucifer. Sona said. Since Rizavam became a terrorist with such dangerous ideals, no one can simply ignore it and sit idly by from now on. Azazel smiled bitterly. Don't make those faces. It's not like we're going to be attacked by the other factions. The problem is that now we have a common enemy. Michael Sama is also negotiating with the other factions as a representative of our god. Griselda reported. There are many mythologies that beg for our help. Additionally, there are factions that have calmed down due to Michael Sama's circumstances. What to expect from Michael? He without a doubt is the leader of the angels. And one more thing. There is a suggestion from the executives of each faction. Azazel raised a finger in the air. Since the incident occurred in the territory of the two major vampire factions, each of the factions will be feeling nervous from now on. Each of the mythologies will have at least one incredibly strong god in their faction, but they have to worry about how people will see them, so they are not able to go out and kill the terrorists so easily. That is why we are in need of forming a team to fight against terrorism, which consists of powerful fighters who can confront Rizavam and his group, who are also capable of moving to those places immediately. An anti-terrorist team? Okay, that's definitely what they need. And it seems like everyone figured out why they're gathered here. Azazel then looks at everyone and says. That team will have the right to act freely for each faction and will be formed by the strongest. All those present were suggested to form the anti-terrorist team with different races. Demons, angels, fallen angels, a vampire, Yaokais, a Valkyrie, humans and dragons. Among other races, whatever. It can be said that you guys are on a different level despite being a mixed team. Plus, it will be much easier to have you in action. A mixed team of so many powerful people sent by the different factions. This team will have an easier time taking action when necessary, and it is also very powerful. And it seems that no one is against this in this regard. That won't be any problem. I don't mind fighting alongside Riaz and Haidu Issei. Sirarg agreed as he clenches his fist with a laugh. I have no objection. Sono also accepts the idea while he adjusts his glasses. Me too. Although it seems like my role is to support everyone from behind. Sikvara shrugged his shoulders as he said that. I have no objection either. It will be easy to work with the young people instead of doing this with another old geezer like me. Even Sun Wukong agrees with this. For some, it seems amazing to be able to fight alongside first Sun Wukong. What's happening? Is something bothering you? Azazel asked, seeing that Dulio was somewhat thoughtful with his head tilted. He just thought that now we need a name. Some looked at Dulio in disbelief and had to agree with him. It sounds like a suitable name instead of just being called anti-terrorist team. You're right, it's true that we need a name. Azazel agreed to Dulio's idea. What's up, DXD? LeFay mutters and everyone goes to see the magician who is surprised and embarrassed to have all the attention directed towards her. Be well. Since it is a mixed team made up of different beings, I thought it would be the most appropriate name. DXD? Is it perhaps referring to the Dragon of Dragons, Great Red? Asked Issei with a hand on his chin. Well, yes. But it can also be used for demons, dragons, and Dantenshi of the fallen angels. LeFay finished giving her opinion while she was able to breathe more calmly when everyone took their eyes off her. Well, we can also add several names that begin with the letter D. Azazel said and then nodded, agreeing. DXD. It's also easy to remember and includes our slogan. The protection of the Great Red, that is DXD. Sounds good to me, but what about you? Azazel asked everyone else. I think it's okay, as long as it's not a weird name. I agree. Dulio gave his approval immediately despite being the one who had asked about it. I don't care about the name of the group. I'd better leave that to the young people. Sun Wukong doesn't seem to care about any of this, but he seems to agree anyway. Won't there be people from other factions who would disagree if a team like us took it upon ourselves to do it? Issei's question was somewhat valid. For even if those above gave their approval, there will be those below them who find their powers dangerous and suspect them. Well, that's something we can't do anything about. But there is no one other than you who better fits that role. So I will leave that important role to you." Azazel responded nonchalantly, and some saw him with half-closed eyes. "By the way, who is going to be the leader of this team? We need one, right?" Valery's question was also very valid. Since they don't know if their superiors will be the high command of the alliance. Well, the leader will be. Azazel began to think about it for a moment and then pointed at Dulio. "The Joker, you will be the leader." And me why asked Dulio with a somewhat exaggerated scream. "No, seriously, because me with the way she reacted, many assumed that Dulio is the kind of person who gets anxious when she receives an important role. It would make a bad impression if a demon or fallen angel became the leader. From any point of view, we always have the image of villains." What Azazel said made some think better and agree with him. Although those words seemed to lower Akeno's self-esteem for some reason. For that reason, an angel will give us a good image and will be good for us. There will be no problems if you take the role. The most important point will be that you are an angel reincarnated from a human being. In addition, you will also have a good image from a human point of view. Is it just for that reason? But I'm not good for that role. Dulio, this is an important role. Griselda said. "You will be able to record your name in history, you know. That's why you should do it. Since your role is to be heaven's trump card, then you must do it." "Oh yeah. Understood, I'll do it." Dulio submitted to Griselda's intense words. And he stands up in front of everyone. "That's how it is, I'll be the leader from now on, so I'm counting on you." It seems that this is the birth of an unreliable leader, but since his strength and occupation is top-notch, a lot is expected of him from now on. "Do you agree to becoming the deputy leader, first son Wukong?" Azazel asked at Dai Yaokai. "Although I am very sorry to have to leave him as second in command." "Alright. It is natural for young people to become leaders. Therefore, I better have to act more as a symbol that instills fear in the enemies." Sun Wukong accepted the position of deputy leader. "This will undoubtedly be an incredible group. I don't have much to say with you." Azazel looked at both Issei and Valery and his group. "As I said before, you are already forgiven for your past actions in the view of the alliance's higher-ups. But all of you will still be watched and will not be able to go to the underworld, heaven, the Yaokai world in Kyoto and Asgard unless you have escorts to accompany you. I'm sorry, but it's the best we could do for you. But we still hope for your cooperation. We will do it. We are willing to fight alongside her." Valery declared determinedly, and upon feeling that they took her hand, she saw that it was Issei who smiled at her, and she did the same. I never thought that the fated fight between the two celestial dragons that has been going on for a long time would end for a reason like this. That's really something I could never have predicted." Azazel had a mocking laugh as he said that while the celestial couple blushed slightly. As a result, a change that had never been seen before happened to both Issei and Valery. "I don't understand the growth of the current two celestial dragons, so I give up. Although I wonder if that growth is related to their celestial relationship." "Oh, shut up once and for all, sensei, don't bother Valery and me," Issei replied with shame and without patience, while Valery was fuming from his ears. Even if they were forgiven. Sona drew attention again while adjusting her glasses. "Is there no problem even when Valery Lucifer and his group were part of the Cows Brigade?" "Not at all, in fact, he already informed Surziches and the other leaders that from the beginning, he had sent Valery to be an infiltrator in Cows Brigade. In the end, she and her group were our allies from the shadows, but they had to take their roles as terrorists seriously." Many were surprised by what Azazel said, except Issei, Riaz and Kiba who already knew it since before. "Azazel-sensei, even if that was the case. If he knows that hiding something like that, when you talked about peace and no secrets, is like violating the rules of the alliance, right?" Sona said with crossed arms and half-closed eyes. "I know." Azazel sighed. Having her and her team acting from the shadows without reporting anything about it to others would be considered either betrayal or distrust. "It is because I have decided that in order to keep things stable, I will resign from my position as governor of Grigori." What Azazel said caused everyone to be speechless for a moment until. "Did you quit? Are you serious?" Issei broke the silence with her screaming question. "Nothing can be done about it." Azazel sighed while picking his ear. "I sent Valery to investigate Cows Brigade from the inside and keep me informed of all his movements without consulting anyone. So it's normal that he resigned to keep things stable." "So what is your current rank?" Valery asked with a raised eyebrow. "I am currently the supervisor of this area, which is one of the important locations of the alliance of the three biblical factions. And my position at Grigori is that of special technology advisor." Some were surprised at what they heard. They didn't expect Azazel to have that position after his resignation as governor. "Oh, from governor to overseer," Tiamat said with her arms crossed. "Well, that's the best thing about it. Shemhazai is now the governor of Grigori and Barakiel is the vice governor. Damn, I do feel better. Those positions correspond more to hard-headed people like them. With this, I will be able to concentrate on my hobbies." You just want more time for your absurd experiments. Natsume looked at him reproachfully, and Azazel just looked away. I knew it. Yufufufu. Maybe we should distance ourselves from him at all costs. I agree, Lavinia. Valery nodded to what his sister said. Oh, shut up, do I look like a mad scientist? Yes, all the young people in general responded, which made Issei laugh out loud. It was good to be home again after everything that happened in these weeks. Azazel sighed. Anyway. Now we have new members that some of you may not know, so everyone better start getting to know each other properly. Aside from the return of our security, he is also limited and under surveillance by what the higher-ups think. But he even brought an unexpected ally along with Valery. Azazel would look at Tiamat. The last of the king dragons that has not appeared until today and is also considered the strongest among them. Without a doubt, the two celestial dragons attract more powerful beings. Even so, we also hope for your cooperation, Tiamat. I am aware of the current situation and this is something I cannot ignore. Also. Tiamat put his hand on Issei's shoulder. If it's for Issei, I'll be happy to help. By the way, there will be a lot to train and I hope you'll help me. And maybe commit to something else. Issei blushed at Tiamat's hint that she said that a little flirtatious. He doesn't deny that she is beautiful, but she still needs to get used to certain things. Hey Tiamat, don't flirt with Issei like that, Valery replied, taking Issei's left arm between his breasts, making him blush. Nee, but don't think I'll lose so easily, Bat. Unaya, don't leave me out. Kuroka, as if nothing had happened, hugged Issei from behind his back, making him feel her incredible breasts press against his back. Don't monopolize Issei-sama. Lefei also joined the group hug, hugging the security from the front and letting him feel her still developing breasts. Which she must admit, they are more developed than those in Asia, she could even compete with Ravel. The others looked at the scene curiously and with some amusement. Arthur was surprised by Lefei's way of acting towards Issei, and if he is what he thinks he is, he should talk seriously to him. Tobio and Kauki only congratulated Valery for being able to express himself properly to the boy he loves, while Lavinia and Natsume were now curious about Issei. Since it seems that Valery doesn't mind sharing Issei with others and that only made them want to meet him. Saji just internally cursed Issei for having such beauties with him, now he envies him more than before, while Sona and the others congratulated Issei for having someone who truly loves him. Ravel just acted tsundere at that and he said things like, Issei-sama womanizer, Issei-sama baka. Irina just looked sad at that moment, she felt like she had no chance and couldn't do anything. Ria's with her, just seeing that she gave up and accepted the harsh reality, there was nothing else she could do. Although she still wants to believe that she can fix things. Kaneko just looked at her sister with annoyance for having the privilege of hugging her senpai, but she couldn't do anything and she knows it well. Zenobi, although he became somewhat sad about it, he still convinced himself that he could fix things. Since her conversation with Issei wasn't as hurtful as the others. While Luceno and Asia only saw all of that reassigned, they couldn't do anything either. Iku, I will call you if necessary. And I will not accept that you reject me. Sun Wukong said to his descendant. I'll keep that in mind, man. And make sure you don't try too hard, you understand. You don't know how stressful it would be to have an evil dragon as an opponent with that old body of yours. Well, I'm going to enjoy it without letting it kill me. Well, moving on to the other thing to close this. Azazel spoke again, drawing everyone's attention. Since this is a large group, everyone can still act as they normally do. But we can't mobilize them all so easily. Everyone has their own job after all. And they can simply cooperate with those with whom they can act immediately when something happens by communicating with others. It's a team for that reason. The thing is that we want to create a group of people who can officially cooperate. Now, is there any of you young people who want to become stronger? Sun Wukong asked, taking a step forward. What do you mean by that? Asked Riaz. I'm going to train all of you from scratch. Sun Wukong said with a wrinkled smile, drawing everyone's attention. There is no point in forming this team if each of you cannot at least defeat a high-class demon or high-level angel. Eventually I will have each of you obtain the strength of one of supreme class. Everyone admit that training with the first Sun Wukong will be a great honor. Since the evil dragons are very powerful, it will be necessary for everyone to increase their strength. Most likely, this team will not only be to fight against the evil dragons incident. Even in the future, it will become a team that fights against enemies out of this world. Azazel nodded. It's like he just said. I know that Team DXD will become the trump card of the supernatural world, as well as the human world. But if you ask me, you guys are amateurs. Sun Wukong shakes his head. No, fans who have only had small appearances. You will not be able to defeat the evil dragons with just that. The Yaokai would go to see the celestial couple. I understand that you have a different power than the Juggernaut drive, right? That's right. Valery nodded. Currently we can both last in these forms for a maximum of 30 minutes. And depending on how much power we use, the time is reduced. In fact, I am limited to using my most powerful and ultimate technique only once, and I might lose my silver armor in the process. Issei seems more durable than me due to his fighting style and so on. Sun Wukong nodded. I see that they recognize their limitations and that's good. And from what I understand, even though both of them don't reach the level of gods with those forms, that doesn't mean that they are weak. On the contrary, they can become stronger. Indicating that that power has yet to mature. And in terms of duration with that power, Sekiryuite beats the Hakuryukyou for being more durable. You're going to have to get better at that, young lady. You don't want your boyfriend saving you all the time, right? I already know that, you decrepit old monkey, replied Valery, blushing with shame, to the delight of some. I am going to train you too, the current 2 heavenly dragons. I will teach you how to fight the evil dragons from scratch. Especially the Longinus holders and their residents, so that they can reach the level of the gods in the future. That is why I am going to train them to the point that they can even fight against the gods. Sun Wukong said, looking at everyone. Are we fighting against the gods? Saraerg asked with a doubtful tone. There are many more gods with the goal of ending the world than you can imagine. Sun Wukong said while spinning his pipe. Well, the first thing we have to worry about is the big villain we have now, Valery Lucifer. I have always thought that those born with a Longinus were predestined to that from the moment of their birth. Predestined to that? Asked Issei. A duty to destroy God. I do not believe that the appearance of the Longinus is a bug in the system, but rather, the occurrence of something inevitable and necessary for this world. Meanwhile, in the zone of the dead in the underworld. Ha ha ha. You are unexpectedly fast. No, I take back what I said. You were faster than I predicted. Anyway, how was the kingdom of the dead? Indra, who had an amused smile, saw that in front of him was Cao Cao on the ground. In a pitiful state, and one could even swear that he looked like a corpse because of how pale he was. And it was a miracle that he came out of that place alive. So that the god who left me there would ask my opinion on the matter. You really are a terrible god, Sakura-sama. And where are Georg and Leonardo? Georg began to investigate the magic of the kingdom of the dead. It looks like he won't be back for a while, and Leonardo is accompanying him. The Longinus holders are people who are impossible to understand. Well, that's fine. As I promised, I will return the true Longinus. Indra threw the holy spear to the ground in front of Cao Cao, and the human touched it with his trembling hands. What happened while I was away? Too much. How about you join them too? I'll talk to the other factions. You, who are the human chosen by the true Longinus, should do so. Kill the evil dragons and Lucifer's son. Evil dragons. Son of Lucifer. Cao Cao looked up, seeing that he had an eye patch over his right eye. Tell me everything. Whatever you want. What's more, take this too. You will need both eyes. Indra gave Cao Cao a common organic eye without any specialty. I took the trouble to look it up for you. So be grateful. Cao Cao, seeing that, felt a kind of pulse coming from the true Longinus, as if it was telling him what he has to do, what is right. Do you want to demonstrate the supremacy of the human race? Well, let him show it from the right side. The will of the biblical God will also give his verdict to this situation. OVA 1. Origins and Predestined Encounters. Red and White Part 1. There was a type of forest that was quite thick, and the sky was purple. And inside the forest, you could see the silhouette of 2 figures running as fast as they could. One was a little girl who looked 9 years old, and she had silver hair with blue eyes, and she looked beaten and with a pained expression as she ran forward holding the hand of the other person next to her, who was a very beautiful woman with black hair and blue eyes, she looked exhausted and was panting, tired from running so much. And when it seemed that both could leave that forest when they saw the exit a couple of kilometers away, it was then that out of nowhere, several bursts of energy hit the ground in front of the 2 women, making them stop in the process. You two are certainly a complete nuisance. A hooded man with a pair of demon wings appeared in front of the woman and the girl. You better give up and submit to my master, or die. Never, I will not allow this aggression anymore. The girl, who was crying with rage, shouted at him, while the woman behind her tried to back away with the girl. But, you asked for it. The instant he said that, some sudden gusts came out of nowhere, intending to hit both women. Valery, the black-haired woman, without thinking twice jumped to the side with the girl in her arms, and the explosion of the attacks that they did not hit affected them a little, even more so for the woman as she was the most vulnerable. Mama. Valery, upon recovering the consciousness he lost for a moment, saw that her mother was above her while he hugged her, protecting her as he could. Coughed. The woman spat out a little blood as she looked up to see her daughter. And seeing that she was fine made her smile even with the certain pain she felt. How good. That you are. Well. That was the last thing she said to finally fall unconscious in the process. Mom Valery tried to wake up his mother so they could escape, but no matter what she did, it didn't look like she was going to wake up for a while. Oh, don't worry, little one. You will see that your mother will live as long as she does what my master wants," said the hooded demon while two other equally hooded demons came out of the thicket of the surrounding trees. "Mom?" Saying that, Valery's expression darkened. And upon being able to get up, he left his unconscious mother next to him while he began to emit a dangerous blue-white aura. You will pay. His aura now was darker than before. "Ahahahaha, nothing bad what was expected of our lord's daughter, but it's still not enough." The demon and his two companions would launch several demonic blasts towards him that it didn't seem like he was going to block or dodge them, but instantly, a bluish-white glow enveloped Valery, and when it dissipated, he revealed that a pair of wings of blue light trails with white edges were spread out on his back. And when the attacks were getting closer to her, divide, 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 divide. That sound was heard coming from the wings, and then, the attacks were greatly reduced until they disappeared completely. Which impressed the three demons. Disappear. Valery, with a cold voice, raised his hand and created a large magic circle. And the next thing that happened was a powerful explosion that occurred in that area of the forest. Valery now walked at a slow pace towards the exit of the forest while he carried his mother as best he could with her supernatural strength. And even when he left the forest, Valery did not stop his walk even once. He continued and continued walking aimlessly, he only wanted to get his mother out of that horrible place where he suffered for so many years. And when he noticed him, he saw that she was in an area somewhat desolate. Oh, how interesting. He heard a voice that he had never heard before, but he could identify that it was a man. And when he realized it, in front of her appeared a black-haired man with blonde highlights who looked 30 years old and had 12 fallen angel wings. Which scared the girl a little. "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you." "Who are you?" "I am Azazel, the ruler of the fallen angels." "Nice to meet you, daughter of Lucifer." Azazel would then extend his hand to the girl. "Are you coming? I will keep you under my tutelage and don't worry, I am not eager for war." Valery didn't know what to say or what to think about Azazel's proposal, but, thinking about it, it was a unique opportunity. What's more, he has nothing more to lose, except the one who is most important to her, and the reason he can smile. In the end, Valery agreed to be under the tutelage of the governor of the fallen who smiled at that. Not before asking her to erase her mother's memories of what she suffered because of her father, and to forget that she had her, and return her to her country of origin in the human world. Azazel with some pity and understandability I accept Valery's request, which did not take more than a day, in addition to leaving the woman in an unconscious state until she is home. Over time, Valery became someone important and loved by many in the place. She met Tobio and Lavinia who were long-eyes holders just like her, and for them, Valery was like their little sister just like Natsume and Kauki. Some of her other cadres also helped her with her training. Barakiel taught her powerful electrical magic that would make anyone tremble. From Shemhazai the young woman learned everything related to hand-to-hand combat, even though that field was not entirely hers. From Penemu, the most beautiful fallen, she learned everything related to magic, the best field of she. From Albion, with whom Valery got along well and considered him a friend and companion, and not a tool, he learned how to master divine dividing in ways that he could not teach him when he was with his father and grandfather. Albion told Valery about his destiny as the Hacker Yuiku, the fight he would have against the Seker Yuite and everything else. Valery cared little about that even though over time, he developed a certain righteousness towards fights, but her greatest objective was still to obtain enough power and thus one day, eliminate the last descendants of the Lucifer family to feel at peace. But for that, Valery proposed herself to change the damn destiny that the holders of divine dividing had and trained harder to protect even those who needed. The kindness and desire to help others was inherited from his mother. Over time, Valery became a master of magic and even tried to learn ancient ones that would be dangerous today, but even her magical talent had a limit to what she could learn, but she still didn't give up. 13 years old, 4 years after being trained by the Grigori, Valery awakened the incomplete balance breaker on a mission she had with Tobio, Lavinia, Natsume and Kauki. Apparently the previous heir of the Nakiri clan caused them some problems. Already at the age of 14 she was able to perfect her balance breaker, but Valery still continued to get stronger. She could face the strongest members of Grigori, and Azazel himself knew that at only 19 years old, the girl was powerful and that he still hadn't reached his full potential. But Valery Lucifer was missing something else. Another reason to fight with more spirit, try to leave the past behind and seek his happiness. And that takes us to the present. Valery. Azazel called to the girl who she practiced with her magic. "I have a favor to ask of you." The silver-haired girl stopped her magic while she wiped away the sweat. "What's wrong, Azazel?" Valery was wearing a black suit with white lines with long sleeves up to her wrist and a skirt that reached halfway to her knees, with black sneakers. "Simple, it's Kakabiel." "The Kabiel? What did that bat face crazy about battles and killings do now?" "Theft of 2 Excaliburs from the Vatican." Valery crossed her arms upon hearing that with a frown. And let me guess, Michael hasn't done anything yet, right? No. But the Vatican has sent 2 exorcists to recover them. Ha. As if only 2 could do anything with him. He's crazy, but he's strong. Valery drank some water before continuing. But something else happens, right? As perceptive as always. Well, the other thing is that she is in in Japan, where the Sisters of the Mass Lucifer and Leviathan now live. And they will be involved in Kakabiel's plans to start a war. TCH. As always, that place only brings problems. Plus if those 2 get involved and a war breaks out, they will brand the fallen as those responsible. That's why I need you to go arrest Kakabiel and bring him here. If I go even with the intention of arresting him, misunderstandings may be created and a conflict could break out. That's why I'm asking you. Although currently there is the current Secretary, who is Ria's Gremory's pawn helping in whatever way he can despite his inexperience in battles. It's a waste of a source for a very powerful item. I saw the footage you got and I'm not at all surprised. I admit that he has guts to face being stronger than him despite his inexperience, but he beat that silly demon Phoenix thanks to his enthusiasm and for using holy items against him. He has potential and I'm not going to deny, but even with it he won't win against that bat face, much less give him a fight. But I still ask you to bring him back and alive. Valery, we cannot let a war break out over something like this and we have to be prepared for that group that we managed to confirm. Valery became serious at what Azazel said. Okay. But you owe me. Do you want a trapped and with a bow? Just bring it. Valery laughed and Azazel couldn't help but do so too. While Valery left the place, Azazel sensed that this event would make the supernatural world aware of the existence of the most powerful hacker Yuku. In Kuo, it was already night. Valery was on the tallest building feeling the wind that ran through this place. Nothing like the air of the human world, Valery said a little grateful for the nice fresh air as the divine dividing appeared on her back and Albion agreed. I don't doubt it Valery, but it would be best to go for Kakabiel at once. Valery agreed to the dragon's suggestion and then went to the Kuo Academy where on his way to that place, he saw that a pillar of golden light protruded from a certain place and went to the sky. And when he arrived at his fate, she saw how the Arisitri and her nobility contained the battle that occurred in the academy with a strong barrier. Nothing that she cannot break. The battle was paused for a few minutes since Kibayudo, the Knight of Gremory, was obtaining the power of his dead friends and that light enveloped him as if blessing him, making him stronger. And he managed to activate the balance breaker, creating a subspecies that would be thought impossible. I admit that knight has an interesting balance breaker. Combining sacred and demonic powers, he has potential. Without a doubt, the balance of light and darkness is broken by the non-existence of God and the mass. It's true. Saying that, they both decided to continue seeing what would happen now and wait for the moment to make their entrance. The Gremory Knight and the Durandal wielder managed to defeat that renegade exorcist who was carrying that incomplete version of Excalibur with only 4 swords, pathetic. Kakabiel gave the Secretary the opportunity to accumulate power and give it to someone since he couldn't fight, and that was true. The Secretary gave all the power he could accumulate to his master, Ria's Gremory, who obtained a power that would put her on the level of the supreme demons, and Valery had to admit that it was admirable. But that in itself it was not a big deal if that power was a single use and barely did any considerable damage to Kakabiel, who had to defend himself from Ria's Gremory's machine gun attack. This was the sister of the current Crimson Mau who is considered a monster. How pathetic she is. She doesn't have the terrifying power and potential that her brother has. And depending on powers that are not theirs, what a waste of potential. Since when did the current demons become so weak? Anyway, with their leader's inability to fight, all the other members of Gremory went to confront Kakabiel as best they could to perhaps defeat him, but they barely made him defend himself. They looked like children going against a big bully who beat them up. Although Kakabiel's revelation about Akeno Himejima surprised Valery a little. So she's Barakiel's daughter, huh? Well, he doesn't blame her for hating her heritage. And even if she used that power, it wouldn't make much difference. I agree. They both continued watching what little was left of the meeting. Until the combat was paused again, as Kakabiel revealed the greatest secret ever told by the main leaders of the 3 biblical sides. The biblical god was dead. That revelation surprised a Gremory and to the bearer of Durandal who fell to her knees on the ground when she saw that her faith, her belief and everything she fought for was in vain. She fought for an empty belief, while the Twilight healing user fainted at such news. Obviously the tense and desperate atmosphere went to hell due to the insinuations of the current Secretary who shouted things from the rooftops about being the harem king and a lot of other nonsense. Something that disappointed Valery and Albion. This was the current wielder of Dreg. In their eyes he is just a young man with raging hormones who only spends his time thinking about women all the time. Although seeing how he pulled admirable power out of nowhere just for the chance to suck a pair of breasts disgusted Valery. The same thing about him as a celestial dragon is just an idiot. Although he managed to land a good blow on Kakabiel, that didn't seem to be enough to hurt him, but it did make him excited. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Let's get this over with. Are you ready, Albion? As always, Valery. The Polyplatina jumped from the building towards the sky and in midair. Vanishing dragon balance breaker. The white flash formed a helpless white armor, blue gems, and a powerful aura. The blue light trail wings of the helpless armor spread out as the girl took flight towards the battlefield. Inside the barrier. Ha, you. Disgusting low-class demon who dared to touch my face. Now you see. Kakabiel had an evil smile while he took out 10 fallen wings. Ha 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 ha. This is exciting. Fufu, does this sound funny to you? A voice was heard coming from the sky. Hey? Who said that? When Kakabiel asked that and looked up at the sky. The barrier was hit by something and was destroyed before the incredulous gaze of Sona Citri and her nobility. Everyone looked up and saw how a white flash was in the air. The power emanating from the being in question was enormous, his white armor showed intimidation and respect. The vanishing dragon. Kakabiel revealed in amazement the identity of the mysterious figure. The vanishing dragon. So that's it. Issei said with some fear as she felt her left arm burn from the presence of the white. DSK. So you were attracted by the power of red, right Hakuryuku? Don't get in my cam. Before Kakabiel finished her sentence, she felt as if her wings had been torn off, and it turns out that the Hakuryuku was behind the fallen one, indicating that she ripped off his wings. How fast? And I couldn't even see when she moved. Issei and Kiba were amazed and terrified by the incredible speed of the Hakuryuku. Huh. They're like the wings of a dirty crow, how unpleasant. Azazel's wings are darker than the night itself, you know. Valery said as if wanting to joke a little, and even with his voice altered thanks to the armor, everyone could recognize that she was a woman. And from her tone, is the current Hakuryuku still young? That amazed the others. You. Damn. Kakabiel became enraged because her wings were torn off. There is no need for wings for those who bowed even below the ground, you know. Are you still thinking about flying? You will regret what you did. Kakabiel, enraged, took flight with the rest of his remaining wings and created a spear of light that began to grow more and more every second. That thing was loaded with a lot of power, but Hakuryuku was not intimidated by that and she just raised her hand in front of her. Divide. Upon hearing this function, the gigantic spear of light created by Kakabiel shrank more and more to the point of disappearing completely. What? Kakabiel couldn't believe what had happened to his attack just before he launched it. What? You should know. My power is to reduce the power of my opponents every 10 seconds and their power will become my power. At this rate, you will be weaker than an average human. Divide the power. Issei was amazed at such a revelation. Just like in the legend. The Sekiryuite increases the user's power and transfers it to another person, and the Hakuryuku steals the opponent's power from him and makes it his own. So it's true. Riaz reaffirmed what the Hakuryuku said. You know, rat face. You were always a war-loving idiot. Not only that, you have revealed a truth that everyone has hidden to maintain balance and avoid a disaster. I still don't understand your reason for demonstrating the supremacy of your race, knowing that you will only lead to extinction the few remaining fallen. There is nothing to understand, it only matters to show that we are the best, nothing else, and you won't get in my way, Hakuryuku. Kakabiel tried to attack Valery with swords of light. But the girl moved at an imperceptible divine speed and she managed to deliver a strong blow to Kakabiel in the stomach, making him agonize and divide. The power of the fallen angel was drastically reduced. Pathetic. Your power now is that of a middle-class fallen angel. Boring. And here I thought you would entertain me for a while. Valery spread his wings. Time to go. At divine speed, the Hakuryuku tackled the fallen with such force, making him agonize in the process. Azazel told me to take you back even if it's by force. But that said, the Hakuryuku moved at a divine speed as she pushed Kakabiel into the air, then pushed her at high speed against the ground with the intention of crashing it. Azazel Kakabiel's scream echoed throughout the place. So that later the Hakuryuku ended up crashing the fallen into the ground with such force that she even destroyed the magic detonation circle that was going to destroy the entire city. Hump. I'll also take that wandering exorcist to answer some questions and then we'll see what will happen to him. Valery took the fallen by the collar of his coat and then went to the wandering exorcist and carried him in his arm. Ready. Now I'm leaving. Are you ignoring me, White? That intimidating voice was heard coming from Issei's gauntlet, who was serious, scared and angry at the same time about all this. So you're awake, Red. Albion's voice was heard through the wings of the Hakuryuku who happened to see the chestnut. That's how it is. But I think this is not the right time for our reunion. Don't worry, we will fight another day. For now my owner has more important matters, it's nothing personal. Although I feel that your intimidation has gone down, Blanco. I say the same about you, Red. You seem different. It seems that we both have things that interest us more than fighting. That is what it seems. We should have fun by ourselves for a while. It wouldn't be bad, right? See you again, Drake. That would be fun too. Until then, Albion. Valery, seeing that the talk between both dragons was over, turned around and when he was going to use flight. Hey, what does this mean? Issei was upset and seemed to want to hit the hacker Yuku, but he didn't for obvious reasons. Who are you and what are you doing? And because of you now I can't suck Butchu's breasts. Issei's complaint brought out an anime-style reaction from Valery, while Kiba only held his hand to his head. Well, just so you know. I only came for this fool, nothing more. And be grateful that you will live another day, Sekiruite. No matter how much you would have increased your power, you would never have beaten this scumbag. Bet that is the weakest among all the Grigori cadres. What Valery said only made Issei click his tongue in irritation. Furthermore, if you are still alive it is because this idiot was confident. So be thankful for that. Valery would turn around, ready to leave. Even if you are my rival and we are predestined to fight one day, that matters little to me. And you seem to think the same. But I still recommend that you become strong. You have potential and I recognize it, but that potential is useless if you don't know how to take advantage of it. Saying that, Valery took flight and flew at a speed that made her disappear from everyone's sight, leaving the Gremories tired and confused. After that, the Mayu's reinforcements arrived 30 minutes after everything ended. When they asked who defeated Kakabiel, they got a surprise. The vanishing dragon had made its appearance in the supernatural world after years of being hidden. In heaven, Michael with Gabriel did not believe what they saw when they saw Kakabiel being destroyed by hacker Yuku, who apart from being a woman, from the tone of her voice, it was clear that she was a young woman. A couple of weeks passed between the battle against Kakabiel and the appearance of the hacker Yuku to the supernatural world. At that time, the main leaders of the three sides had private meetings and agreed to form peace between the factions, and at that time, there were exchanges of things between the three sides by the main leaders to have more confidence in each other. Who really want peace? The demons gave the angels a copy of Kibayudo's legendary holy demonic sword so they could mass reproduce it, and Michael gave Haidu Issei, the Sekiruite, the dragon slayer Ascalon holy sword. And the fallen shared their technology and knowledge with the demons and angels who did the same with each other, and vice versa. And with everything agreed to show that they want peace, the day of the decisive meeting arrived in the blink of an eye. And in Grigori, 2 hours before the meeting. Are you sure, Valery? Azazel asked seriously. No, but it's the only thing I can think of to know what the next attacks will be. Valery said seriously. Azazel sighed heavily at that, since Valery recently notified him that she and her secret team joined the Cows Brigade to obtain information about the next attacks that they would make, such as the one that was going to be carried out at the meeting of the three factions by one of the descendants of the Mass and the Street Wizards. Alright. And for now it will be our secret. Valery nodded in agreement with what Azazel said. Azazel-sama, it's time for the meeting. Said one of Azazel's guards who entered the room. Thank you, now let's go. Azazel said seriously and the Fallen withdrew without anything more to say. But that said, Azazel, Valery and the Fallen who would act as guards left for the meeting through a magic circle. When they arrived at the meeting room, they only had to wait for the Gremory and Citri nobility on behalf of the demons to start the meeting. On the part of the demons were the current mass, Serzich's Lucifer and Seraphol Leviathan. And behind them were their sisters with their respective entourages, except for two members of the Gremory group. From the angels were Michael and Irina Shidu as his bodyguard. Valery coincidentally ended up exchanging glances with Issei who was amazed by her beauty, but he quickly discarded all that when he felt the same annoyance in Valery as the day the White One appeared. And Drake confirmed that she was the bearer of Albion, which puzzled Issei. He did not expect that her predestined rival would be a girl of a beauty superior to that of Ria's and many of her companions. But he instantly discarded all that admiration for her beauty, remembering that she was his nemesis, although she didn't seem all that interested in fighting him. The meeting passed normally, talking about different points regarding the Kakabiel incident and that he acted on his own. And now reaching the important part to formalize peace. Well, before making the peace treaty, I would like to hear what the two celestial dragons think regarding peace. Azazel said looking at Valery with his clear carefree smile. As long as they don't interfere with my goals and let me live in peace with the people I love, I won't have any problems with peace. Valery said without much importance although she was interested in this treaty. Azazel smiled pleased when he heard Valery's response. Well then. Sekiruite, and what do you tell us? To be honest, I don't understand it well. Issei said scratching his cheek in doubt. Somehow, because my whole head is a mess, this is complicated. How should I respond to what I think about the world? You are one of those who has the power to move the world. If you don't make your choice, then it would be difficult for those at the top of each of the factions to decide how to move. Azazel said putting on a funny and mischievous smile. Hi to Issei, then let me explain it to you a simpler way. If we fight, then there will be a need for you to stand front on the battlefield. If that happens, you won't be able to sleep with Ria's Gremory. What Azazel said left Issei speechless. If we make peace, then there will be no need to fight. If that happens, then what remains is the most important thing, that is the continuation of the species and prosperity. You will be able to have Hex with Ria's Gremory every day. How are you? Is it easy to understand now? If there is a fight, then you won't be able to have Hex. If there is peace, then you can have Hex as long as you want. What are you going to choose? Issei was speechless for a moment and then he was able to respond with a lot of energy. I would like peace please. Yeah, peace is good, peace is the best. I want to do Hexwell things with Butchu. Riaz blushed with embarrassment at the pawn's advances on him. Issei-kun, Surzich's Sama is present here you know. Kiba said with a bitter smile as if he was reproaching a child. And Surzich's began to laugh in a low intensity. But at the moment of finishing the signatures, time froze as did some of those present, leaving only the leaders, Issei, Riaz, Valery, Kiba, Zenobia and Arena, as if nothing had happened. Instantly Azazel reported that this was the work of the powerful Gaspar Vladi, who was apparently captured by the terrorists, in addition to revealing the existence of the organization that was formed recently, called Cow's Brigade. It was quickly decided that Issei would go with Riaz to rescue Gaspar, while Valery, Kiba, Leviathan made an appearance before the leaders and Azazel offered to confront her, starting great battles on the academy campus. Issei and Riaz would have rescued Gaspar and Kaneko from the magicians and returned with the others to take care of the magicians, where Gaspar, showing his determination for his friends, unfroze time, freeing the others and thus everyone participating in the fight to end the magicians. Street wizards. Azazel and Kateria continued their magical fight in the air, where the Fallen deciding to end this once and for all, takes out his artificial sacred gear, the Downfall Dragon Spear, and activates his cheap version of the Balance Breaker. With which he was able to eliminate the descendant of Leviathan without any problem, although he sacrificed her arm in the process. I give you my arm as a consolation prize. Azazel would make a magic circle appear on his arm to stop its bloody bleeding. But at that moment, a powerful lightning bolt fell on him, knocking him abruptly to the ground. Ugh. So that's how things are, right, Valery? Azazel nonchalantly looked at the sky, seeing the aforementioned. Sorry Azazel, but this side is much more interesting. I see, I was afraid it would be like this. Azazel didn't seem to care that his best student had betrayed him. It almost seemed as if he had seen it coming. Although both the governor and the hacker Yuku had to act well so as not to seem suspicious. And I thought for a moment that you and Kateria conspired to dethrone the current mass, but in the end you just used it. That's right. Said Valery. What do you mean by that? Asked Seraphil a little doubtful. Simple. Valery extended his hand, showing a magic circle with a symbol only the leaders and others recognized. My real name is Valery Lucifer. Everyone was speechless at that revelation, and 8 demon wings spread from the girl's back, alarming many. Lucifer. Issei couldn't believe what he heard. Those wings. Asia didn't know what to say about that number of demon wings. The blood of the original Mau Lucifer runs through my veins. I am the daughter of the last descendant of Lucifer, who had a relationship with a human woman, and from there I was born. The blood descendant of the original Mau Lucifer who is half human, and is also the bearer of the vanishing dragon. Your mere existence is a whim of fate. Azazel continued as if nothing had happened even in the face of Valery's revelation that left everyone speechless. I think the word miracle fits me better. Valery put away his demon wings as he said that and then directed his attention towards Issei. Normally I would leave right now since I accomplished what I wanted, but first. I would like a small fight with my rival Kun. What? Issei sounded a little scared at that statement, although he instantly became serious. Even though I told you that you have potential, you don't know how to take advantage of it. Still, I want to know how good you are. You're insane. I'm not crazy, it's just a small test. But if you need a reason to come face me, I'll give it to you. Valery raised the finger of his hand, creating a small but powerful white sphere. And without warning, he launched a small beam of energy that went in Ria's direction at high speed, which worried the few who could see that. And before anyone could do anything to defend the redeed, he looked like the energy beam did not hit Ria's, but instead collided with the ground, cracking it in front of the redeed who did not know what to think. It almost hit her. But you? Don't worry, I'm fine. Ria stated, making Issei sigh, but don't trust yourself. Valery called attention again. That was a warning shot for you to make up your mind. So he decides once and for all, or I swear that the next one, instead of hitting her, will hit the next none, and I assure you it won't be a warning. Asia shuddered at Valery's threat, which Zenobia and Kiba decided to cover for her. But instantly, something happened that no one expected, and that was to feel a huge killer instinct that made everyone get nervous, and then hear Issei's angry voice. You. Damn unhappy. If you do something to Asia and Butchu. The boosted gear began to shine brightly, along with a bracelet that Azazel gave to Issei, and a red-green aura wrapped it. "I'll kill you, Welsh dragon over booster." Upon hearing that, there was an explosion of energy where Issei was, and when the glow that was created dissipated, the brunette was seen with his balance breaker armor. "I won't let you hurt my friends because of your whims." Oh, interesting. And to think that his power rose this way just because of that. That reaffirms that he has potential. A very big one. Sacred gears respond to the will, feelings and desires of the wearer. Right now, all his anger is directed towards you. "Oh, you mean your compatibility with dragons is better than mine? That explains. Don't complain about what you don't understand." Issei shouted to attack Valery with his best speed Ascalon blade. The Dragon Slayer sword appeared in the Sekiryute's gauntlet and he made a direct attack with it towards the hacker Yuku, who dodged it as if it were nothing. Thus starting a battle where Valery had the advantage. They had a collision in the air where Valery dealt Issei a strong blow that made him die and fall to the ground, but not before. Divide. The hacker Yuku divided the power of the Sekiryute, who tried to rise as best they could. "That's all. What a disappointment," said Valery, wanting to provoke him. "This is not over yet." Boost. The Sekiryute, with his power restored, attacked the Hakuryuku again, who received him fully. While they continued fighting, Issei noticed how Valery's wings seemed to release energy, and Drake told him that he was expelling the excess energy he had to maintain its stable power, indicating that it has a limit to how much power it can absorb. But that information, Issei attacked Valery with more ferocity, who began to defend himself as best he could from his attacks, but a blow charged with Dragon Slayer aura from Issei disconcerted Valery, who received it right in the face, and that Issei took advantage of a moment of confusion to grab Valery's wings with his hands, and now, transfer. The Sekiryute transferred power to the Hakuryuku's wings, causing them to flash between green and blue repetitively. "But the power you have and the power I am giving you, you will be overloaded. Your sacred gear will not support it and will deactivate." TCH. "Shit, let my guard down." Valery now became serious at this. "Valery, the armor is going into overload. Let's retreat temporarily to stabilize." But before Valery did what Albion suggested. "Now get this." Issei made a magic circle appear on Valery's shoulder and smiled lowly at that. "Let's see if you like this dress break." At the mention of Issei's most evil technique, it was possible to see how Valery's armor was completely destroyed, only his wings remaining, but to the surprise of Issei and those who knew Issei's technique. It turns out that Valery's ordinary clothes were not destroyed by the dress break, it only destroyed the armor. "See, how is it possible that she doesn't? Forget about that idiot, she's helpless too. Give him the killing blow." Issei had to listen to what Drake said. It was his chance. Phew, but how? "Valery, pay attention." The girl reacted as best she could to Albion's warning, and when she realized it and saw Issei again. Transfer. The transfer was seen accumulated on her left arm, which had a very dangerous Dragon Slayer aura. "Now take this blow head on." Issei, without any sign of doubt or mercy, gave a strong blow to Valery, who tried to block it with a defensive circle still in the air, but that was of little use. Since her defensive circle was destroyed by the Sekiryute's blow that hit her squarely in the stomach, causing the Hakuryuku to agonize and fall to the ground with great abruptness, creating a crater where it fell while the Sekiryute stepped on the ground to catch his breath. Ibita celebrated Issei's supposed victory like the others, but don't claim victory yet. "I know Valery better than anyone, and I know that that is not enough to defeat her." As Azazel said, everyone went to see the place where the Hakuryuku was. Out. Valery spat out some blood as he stood up in pain from where he was. "Ku. I felt like a hammer had hit my body. But don't expect that technique. Well, you were saved. It seems that his evil technique didn't affect you at all thanks to the armor. It seems that that technique can only remove one piece of clothing at a time, or his spell wasn't powerful enough to destroy both the armor and your clothes at the same time. Hahaha. You were miraculously saved from being naked in public." "Okay, I'm sick of it." Valery walked over to see Issei with an indifferent expression that scared him a little. "Yes, you are very vulgar, an enemy of women. I had heard of that dirty technique of yours, but that you used it against me." Valery expelled a dangerous aura that showed his anger. "By a miracle I didn't finish like the others, but still." The white light surrounded Valery, and when it dissipated, the girl was seen with her armor on again. "I will make you pay for almost humiliating me in public and almost leaving me without dignity." "Oh okay, I think I made her angry." "That's pretty obvious, brat." Drake responded sarcastically to what Issei said, who began to feel a certain fear of Valery's anger. "Even so, this battle won't end unless you knock her out or knock her out. Mates, that's how our fights always were. And you barely gave him any serious damage. The best plan would be to run away if you want to live, but you can't do that, right?" "Of course. I can't run away and abandon but you and the others." Suddenly, something entered Issei's field of vision. Drake, the sacred gears respond to the feelings of the wearer and evolve, right? Issei said as she picked up a blue gem from Valery's armor from the ground. Oh, what you propose is very interesting. But are you willing to die, partner? I can't die. I haven't taken Butchu's virginity yet, so. I will endure all the pain I must receive. Your will pleases me in that case, I'll bear it too. That ability is not mine, but I am the Welsh dragon, I am a mass of pure power. We will survive and get through this, mate. No, hi to Issei. That's right, Issei responded, raising the blue gem while the gems on her armor shone. Hump? What are you planning to do? Asked Valery, a little interested in what was going to happen now, leaving aside that a moment ago a murderous instinct emanated against Issei. Banishing dragon Valery, I'm going to take power from him. The moment she said that, Issei removed the green gem from the right gauntlet and inserted the blue gem from the hacker Yuku. And instantly, a white aura erupted from Issei's right arm and expanded around his entire right arm just as a strange sensation began to run through his body. Guy Issei screamed in pain as he held his right arm tightly. It hurts but it is nothing compared to when they pierced me with those spears of light. You intend to obtain my power? Valery showed genuine surprise at the absurd feat that the Securitate is trying to achieve. What a reckless thing, Drake. We are opposite beings. That is nothing more than an act of self-destruction. Are you willing to annihilate yourself for something like that? Albion exclaimed indifferently. Boo! Drake was also screaming in agony. This feat is damaging his soul, but he cared little since he started laughing. Albion, you are as unyielding as ever. For countless eons, we have reincarnated into the different hosts and continue to fight each other. It's a repetition of the same thing, each and every time. That's Dreg. That is our destiny. Even if our respective hosts are different, the way we fight is the same. You increase the power, I divide and steal the power. The side that skillfully uses his sacred gear delivers the killing blow and ends it. This is how it always has been and always will be. Drake laughed fearlessly at Albion's words. Since meeting this guest, with Haidu Issei, I have learned one thing, that everything is possible with a certain stupidity. Stupidity is good. If I can't beat you with my ability, I'm going to excel through stupidity anyway. Respond to my will. And now Issei raised his right arm that shone with a white light, and when it dissipated, he was able to see that the right gauntlet was now white with a gem. Vanishing dragon power is taken. So this is the dividing gear. Very good. Issei bumped his fists to put himself on guard, while the others did not know what to say in the face of such an event. Impossible, such a thing is impossible. Albion let out an astonished voice, while Valery didn't know what to say. Kiba did the impossible by creating a holy demonic sword. So I determined to do something similar. It was reckless, but I survived. Comrade, although we achieved this unique event, your lifespan has become too short even for demons who live almost for eternity. I don't intend to live for 10,000 years. However, since there are many things I want to do, I would like to live at least 1,000 years. Valery, time for the next round, Issei exclaimed, preparing to fight again. Interesting. Then I'll get serious. Valery took flight into the air and his wings of light grew enormously, then. Half-dimension. Surrounded by a glowing aura and joined by the light of her wings, Valery pointed her hand towards a grove of trees below her. And the thickness of the trees was reduced by half in an instant. What the hell? He's literally cutting everything in half. More of the surrounding trees were compressed and reduced by half. This is bad. It's distorting the dimension. Said Michael somewhat seriously. This has no logic. Sona said in a cold sweat. So don't try to find it. When it comes to dragons, logic doesn't apply to them, especially celestials. Azazel would cough and then. Hey Securitate, hi to Issei. What do you want now? Issei asked a little upset. Let me explain it to you clearly. That ability of Valery reduces everything in his surroundings by half. In other words, if Valery gets serious, Ria's Grimory's bust will also be reduced by half. Riaz didn't know what to say when faced with what Azazel said. And as for Issei, he froze for a moment at such an explanation. And without expecting it, an extraordinary fury began to run through his entire body, and instantly. Don't F me off. Boost. Damned, I won't let you reduce Butchu's breasts by half. What the heck are you saying? Boost. I won't allow it. Boost. I won't allow it. Boost. But the excessive amount of surges that Issei was making, everyone around him started flying due to the huge shockwave he released. The windows of the old school building were completely cracked and the outer wall collapsed. And the leaders had to reinforce their barrier to avoid flying away. What the hell is that? Really? Your draconic power erupted so soon, only because your mistress's breasts could become smaller. Azazel burst out laughing and laughed. When the shock wave ended, Issei was enveloped in a large mass of red-green aura that he had never had. Try to make another move against my Butchu, and I swear I'm going to hit you so hard to the point where you won't be able to reincarnate anymore, Valery Lucifer. At that exclamation, Issei attacked Valery with absurd speed, and when she dodged him, taking distance from her, Issei quickly changed his trajectory and went against Valery again, managing to land a strong knee on her stomach. Where does he get that speed from? Valery tried to take the distance from him with his best speed, but Issei could keep up with her without missing a beat even for a second. How big was he? The stupidity of him. This is because of Butchu's breasts. With her right fist, Issei hit Valery hard on her abdomen, making her agonize again, and to top it off, the white gauntlet absorbed the power of the Hakuryuku. Affected by her own power, how crazy. This is for Akeno-san's breasts. Issei gave Valery another hard blow to the face that cracked his helmet. This is for Asia's developing breasts. Issei knees him hard in the abdomen. This is for Zenovia's breasts. She gives him another strong blow to the abdomen with the white gauntlet. He again divided the power of the Hakuryuku, who was now completely cornered. And this last one. Issei charged an even stronger aura in his right fist. It's because of Kaneko-chan's breasts that they will disappear if he shrinks, and he gave her another strong blow to the abdomen. Valery spit out blood at that blow and fell abruptly to the ground again, crashing. Where does he get that absurd strength from? Valery got up again, still with pain in his body, while Issei fell on his knees to the ground making a fuss. The great momentum he gained had just gone. Valery, you already checked it. It is a fact that the wielder of Drag is a hopeless idiot, but an idiot who brings out mysterious strength for something so foolish. Let's get it over with. You're right. It's a shame, he would be a worthy rival for my Juggernaut drive, but if he can't use it, there's no point in him using it. This is not over yet. Issei, still tired and exhausted, continued to insist, trying to get to Valery at a slow pace to continue the fight, but instantly, the barrier that covered the school was destroyed and someone fell next to Valery. It was a black-haired young man with Chinese armor and a staff. The young man introduced himself with the name of Biku, the descendant of the Sun original Wukong. And with that, the Yaokai and the Hakuryuku left the place in a magic circle. The battle between the two current celestial dragons was a draw on this occasion, without knowing what would happen later. OVA 2. Origins and Predestined Encounters. Red and White Part 2. In Kuo, practically in an apartment complex where the governor of the fallen angels lived. Sorry for informing you through this communication system, Sirziches. Azazel was sitting in his chair with a drink in hand and a communication circle in his ear. Don't worry, Azazel, if it's important enough not to tell me in person, I'll understand. So what is it about? Sirzich's voice was heard in the communication circle. It is about the mysterious death of Glacial Ebola's heir and the rise of Diodora Astaroth's demonic powers. Are they related? Sirzich's now sounded serious when asking that. So it seems. Azazel took a drink and then continued talking. We don't have any evidence yet, but since Valery took the trouble to inform me of this, it seems that Diodora Astaroth is up to something. Azazel would remember the private call he received from Valery less than an hour ago. Flashback. Are you sure what you're saying, Valery? Azazel asked seriously while he kept some documents in a folder and had a communication circle in his ear. Yes, Azazel. I couldn't find out much since it seems that they distrust us, but I was able to confirm that the heir Astaroth is up to something in his next raiding game. And if I'm not mistaken, the last two descendants of the mass who want to recover what is rightfully theirs will be involved. DCH. Thank you for your report. I will contact the leaders immediately. Then flashback. Looks like we'll have to use your plan after all, Azazel. I know. Even Michael and Auden gave their consent. Azazel raised his cup a little to look at her. That said, I feel bad for doing this to brats, but it's necessary. By the way, Azazel, I found out that Shemhazai got married. Man, everyone is rushing things. Not only that, but they were having fun with the women of different factions behind my back. Shit, am I the only man left alone? Fufu, how about you go out and marry someone now, Azazel? I don't want to. I'm a man who lives by his interests. There are a lot of women out there. Yeah. He's going to do it that way. Anyway, I trust you with the plan. Yes, leave it to me. The day of the Gremory Group's raiding game against the Astaroth clan would have arrived as if nothing had happened. When the Gremory Group arrived at the game field, they were instantly surrounded by the demons of the old mass of the Cows Brigade. Also in her carelessness, Diodora kidnapped Asia Argento and took her to the temple in the field. Moments later, Auden arrived, who decided to take care of the old mass, while the Gremory Group went to save Asia from Diodora. Several minutes later, the Gremory Group arrived at the temple where Diodora was keeping Asia. And with no choice, they had to humor Diodora by playing their own version of the raiding game. Issei, Zenovia, Kaneko and Gasper met. They were in charge of the 8 pawns that promoted the queen and the 2 rooks, while Riaz, Akeno and Kiba were in charge of the queen and the 2 bishops. Ending the 2 fights with the victory of the Gremory Group, who advanced to another part of the temple where Diodora must be waiting for them. Upon arriving at the place where Diodora should be, the one who ended up receiving them was Fried Selzen, the renegade exorcist who helped both Rainer and her group as well as Kakabiel. Fried had transformed into a humanoid chimera with draconic features, ready to face the Grimoire in that way, believing himself to be stronger. In addition to revealing that Diodora was responsible for Asia being expelled from the church, he had planned everything. That revelation surprised and enraged the Grimoire group when they learned that the heir Astaroth is worse than scum. And Kibayudo took it upon himself to end Fried's life with a single slash of his sword, cutting him in half. And while all that was happening, Azazel along with Saraerg, Tannen, Irina, Roswis and the demons, angels and fallen of the Alliance, were fighting against the terrorists in another part of the raiding game field. Azazel accidentally ended up running into the dragon god, Office Ouroboros, where both had a small exchange of words until another of the descendants of the original mass, Crucerius Madius, arrived. Shortly after, Serzich's Valery Lucifer also arrived at the scene, trying to reach an agreement with Crucery without success. And with no other option, Serzich's ended up killing Crucery by turning him into dust with just one sphere of the power of destruction. Returning to the Grimoire group, they finally managed to find Diodora Astaroth, who had Asia tied up in a machine that could invert her healing powers to harm everyone within this raiding game field. Diodora with grace and I confidently revealed that he was the one who created everything related to the expulsion of Asia from the church and so on. Issei Haidu, already more than fed up with all this, entered his balance breaker and gave the Astaroth heir the beating of his life. Not even with his increase in power was he a match for the Securiute who swept the floor with him. In the end, Issei, pushing his power to great limits, managed to destroy the machine, which was a barrier device created by the Longinus, lost dimension, which had Asia imprisoned. Everyone was happy to see that everything ended, however, before retiring. Asia began to pray a wish, and when they were about to leave, the ex-nun had disappeared in a mysterious pillar of light that appeared out of nowhere. She was no longer in the place. Nobody understood anything. A few seconds ago they had managed to save Asia from the hands of Diodora. And when they were steps away from leaving, the blonde was devoured by a strange light and then disappeared. Everyone in the place was speechless. DCH, an object created by one Longinus perishes from the attack of another, huh. Damn misuser, it seems like he got overconfident. It will be necessary to readjust the plan. Upon hearing that new voice, everyone saw how a man with long brown hair appeared from a magic circle wearing light armor with a cape who was floating in the air. "Who are you?" asked Riaz in a cold sweat. "It's the first time I've seen you in person, sister of the false Mao. My name is Shalba Beelzebub, the successor of the true great Mao Beelzebub. I am different from the blood relationship of that fake one they fought before." Shalba would look at Diodora with contempt. Diodora Astaroth, I lent you my power and observed this result. In the match against Aegers, you used Office's serpent without my authorization and let the enemy predict our plan. You are truly foolish. Shalba, please help me with your power. We can kill the Securiute and everyone here if an old Mao and current Mao join forces. Diodora could not finish her words because a sudden attack of light pierced her chest. It is unfortunate. I even told you about the power of the girl's sacred gear and yet you couldn't do anything. That explains how useless you are. Shalba clenched her fist as she said that, and then, Diodora Astaroth was disintegrated by a pillar of light, turning him into ashes. Now, sister of Serzich's. This may be sudden, but you will have to die here. The reason is simple, that is to destroy all the blood relatives of the current fake mass. So you intend to kill the Glacial Ebolas, Astaroth, Citri, and us, the Grimoire. Right? Asked Riaz with a dangerous layer of destructive aura surrounding her. That's right. It's just disgusting. We, the true successors, are called old by you, the family of the current mass, and it is a very difficult thing to bear. Shalba sighed. Our plan ends with this. It is our defeat. I never thought that boosted gear, a mid-level Longinus, would win against Lost Dimension, which is a high-level Longinus. I can only say that this was something we did not anticipate. Well, we already have significant results for future attacks, so I have to be satisfied with that. Cruisery is dead, but it won't be a problem. As long as I'm active, we can still move forward, even without Valery. The true value of Beelzebub is great. Now, as my memory when I return. Sister of Serzich's. I am going to kill you. You don't challenge the Crimson Mao directly, but you do want to kill his relatives. What a coward you are. That's okay. I'm going to kill the current Mao's family first. This means nothing if I don't like your desperation. Human waste above all, the crime for killing Asia. I really won't forgive him, Riaz shouted, increasing the destructive aura around her, a product of her anger. Asia? Asia? Issei called to the blonde as she walked hesitantly, much to the concern of the others. Asia, where did you go? Hey, come on. We're going home. Dad and Mom are waiting for us. If you hide, then you won't be able to return home. Hahaha, Asia really likes to play. Issei started looking around her to look for Asia while she walked weakly with her feet. Asia. Let's go home. Now, there's no one else here to intimidate you, Asia. Even if she had, I'd beat her up. That's why we're going back. Asia, we still have to participate in the three-legged race for the sports festival. Issei. Riaz approached the brunette, holding his face so that he could see her. Kaneko and Gasper cried in silence when they saw that. Akeno looked away trying to hide her tears, and Kiba just bit his lip trying to calm down too. But I can't find Asia. Even though we are finally able to return home. We still have to hide under the basement like Sensei told us. However, if Asia is not here. Dad and Mom said that Asia was her daughter. Asia also said that Dad and Mom were like her real parents, like this. She is me. She is an important part of our family. Issei kept staring at nothing while she said that. I will not forgive you. I will kill you. I will kill you. Zenobia with rage and tears in her eyes, launched herself to attack Shalba head-on with Durandal and Ascalon in hand. Useless. Shalba covers herself with a circle of protection that blocked Zenovia's swords without problems, and then launched a demonic blast that made Zenobia fall wounded to the ground. Listen well, vulgar reincarnated class demon low. I teleported that girl to the dimensional gap. Without anything to protect her, she must have already perished. What Shalba said made Issei see it. In other words, she is dead. You couldn't save her. Those words hit very hard in Issei's mind. Issei would look at Shalba with anger on his face as his eyes began to glow green. And without knowing it, inside his being. As if something had been released or came out of its ceiling. A dark aura was present in the boy's soul, and said dark aura gave him an evil smile with eyes just as evil. Back to reality, Issei with his head lowered, began to approach Shalba at a slow pace, while the boosted gear appeared on her arm. Issei. Ria's Gremory. Drake's voice was heard from the gauntlet. If you don't want to die, everyone better get out of here immediately. See how? Riaz and the others did not understand what Drake warned them about. What was he going to do? And you, the demon over there. Your name was Shalba, right? When Drake said that, Issei stopped right in front of Shalba, still with his head down. You just committed a serious error. Drake's voice was heard even through Issei. And when he looked up, Issei's eyes were green with draconic features and blood coming out of them like tears. A serious mistake. Instantly, Issei began to emit a dangerous blood-red aura, and the shrine shook violently from his aura. And said aura pushed everyone several meters without distinction. Shalba crashed into the wall while the rest tried not to fly away, helping each other. Who this aura and power? Kiba tried to avoid flying away while Akeno helped Zenobia. It's dangerous. Kaneko said as he helped Gasper from flying away. Issei Riaz tried to get closer to the brunette, but it was impossible. The aura that was overflowing and the rubble did not allow her to get close to him. What is happening, Issei? This is. Shalba said that she stood up instantly, and then. Issei was there in his armor, standing right in front of the Beelzebub, emanating that great aura as red as blood itself. And from the left gauntlet, several green orbs began to emerge. These were. That one will wake up. Issei began to chant with a dark and penetrating tone. It's going to start. It's starting. The voices of several men were heard, whose tone was like that of a curse. I am the celestial dragon who stole the principles of God's domination. It has always been like this actually, it has always been like this. Even the voices of women crying were heard, with a cursed tone. I laughed at infinity and despised dream. What the world wants, what the world rejects. I will become the red dragon of domination. Issei's armor began to mutate at the same time as he sang. First his head extended from his body, and then he saw how his legs and arms grew until they were almost 3 times the size they were. The wings they became like some kind of articulated bars with green gems on them, while green energy replaced what were the membranes of these. What they were seeing was a dragon. No matter how many times, you will choose the path of ruin, and I will plunge you into the depths of crimson purgatory. Juggernaut Drive. The roar of the dragon and the energy it expelled was enough to destroy the foundations of the place and everything in its path. Even Shalba himself felt chills. The being in front of him looked at him as if he were prey. While Riaz and the others were speechless at what they saw. Was that Issei? The Sekiruite, focusing on its prey, quickly flapping its wings, attacked Shalba at a speed that exceeded the speed of sound as it destroyed what was close to him after the impulse it gave. Shalba tried to counterattack with a magic circle attack, but the Sekiruite quickly bit Shalba's shoulder with its jaws, dragging it along the ground until it could tear off its right arm up to the shoulder and pass it by. The blood coming out of Shalba's wound fell to the ground, while the Sekiruite only pulled the demon's arm in his mouth at one side, and he would turn to see his prey again. And I couldn't even see. When he moved. Kiba sweat cold seeing the heavenly dragon's tremendous speed. Everyone was the same, but the most affected was Riaz. Shalba held the injured area as he glared at the Sekiruite. While all this was happening, in the dimensional gap. Valery and his group were exploring it out of simple curiosity, and also to see if they could see a certain being. Arthur used his sword Caliburn, which created a barrier that allows them to move around that place without problems. "Hey Valery, are you sure he is here in this dimensional gap?" Biku asked, a little bored. "Naya, I agree with the monkey, this is boring. I could have stayed at the base sleeping peacefully, but I agreed to come without knowing that it would be very boring. Also, it's better to be cautious, we don't know if someone from the Cows Brigade may show up and they are already suspecting us." Arthur had a point, although the group's alibi is that they were investigating things that could be beneficial to terrorists, they actually give information to the Alliance. But they are already under suspicion. He is right, Valery. Great Red is not shown or seen just like that. Those who have had the privilege of seeing him have been through acts of luck. Albion knew that that dragon was very secretive to the point that no one knew if he spoke. I think. Valery looked up when he saw a break in the distance. Is that? He noticed that something was coming out of that break, a person he barely recognized, El the nun. Valery, without thinking twice, activated his armor and left the barrier that protected him to go towards Asia. After catching her, he immediately enveloped her in her aura to protect her from the empty atmosphere of the place and returned to the rest in the barrier. And Kuroka went to see his condition. It's a miracle, he's still breathing. Kuroka confirmed Asia's condition, he was fine, but how did he get here? This trace of energy. Shalba. Valery frowned as he recognized the traces of aura and the blonde. That idiot has surely done what he reported to Azazel, and maybe the Gremory group is involved in this. Is this? Valery felt a strange sensation on the back of his neck, something in it was telling him that something bad had happened and that going there was what he should do, plus. Hi do Issei, something has happened to you. What makes you say that, Valery? Naya. Kuroka was treating Asia, who had suffered severe fatigue, she must have been exposed to strong light. It's just a feeling, but I'm not going to risk ignoring it. Valery looked at the hole where Asia came from. Arthur, take us to the underworld. As you say. The human manipulated the barrier and moved it in the direction of the hole. Back in the underworld. The Security's roar was heard throughout the area where they were and perhaps in the distance. Damn dragon. Shalba took off the cloak that she had on her armor and then stood back and made a large magic circle appear under the Security eye. Instantly, a large pillar of light enveloped the Security and Shalba smiled as she believed she won, but the gems on the Security's bar-shaped wings instantly turned blue and then divide. The power he obtained from Valery was used and the light surrounding the Security became smaller and smaller to the point of completely disappearing into particles. Valery's power. Shalba didn't believe what she saw. That power. It is the power that Issei-kun stole from Valery Lucifer. Hineko and Kiba couldn't believe what they saw either, as did the others who didn't say anything. "Curse, why do you always get in my way, Valery?" Shalba shouted, more than annoyed. It was obvious that the descendant of Beelzebub hated the descendant of Lucifer. Shalba took a great leap and fired a powerful demonic attack from a magic circle. But the Security only opens his mouth and fires a red blast that overcomes Shalba's attack, eliminating him and going against the demon, who narrowly dodged it but lost his other arm in the process due to the dodged attack and simply fell to the ground. The Security made a tremendous roar as he covered himself with a large amount of blood-red aura. A large crater appeared on the ground and everyone around it shook, flew away, or was destroyed by its powerful aura. Monster, is this the Juggernaut drive? Shalba was a little scared as she stood up as best she could, since without his arms, it was a bit difficult. This is ridiculous. I received the power of office and reached the power of the ancient mass, but you. Have you surpassed the Mao level? Shalba's expression finally filled with fear. His eyes were rooted in fear and he only looked at Issei as someone he should fear. Riaz didn't believe what he saw as his body trembled. And Akeno, Zenobia, Kaneko, Kiba and Gasper were afraid of what they saw. Instantly, the Security changed his posture as he stared at Shalba and spread his wings. And then, the chest of the armor opened, revealing a large green gem that gave everyone a bad feeling. Boost. That gem in his chest began to charge a large amount of energy that scared everyone. Especially to Shalba, that he knew from the data they had of the past possessors of that attack, an attack that can wipe out a large piece of the earth with mere contact. I can't die in a place like this. Shalba tried to flee, taking flight, but something stopped him. But what? It was then that everyone noticed that the Security's eyes glowed a peculiar color that the Gremory recognized, and Gasper's eyes glowed that same color for a moment. Is Issei-kun using Gasper-kun's power? Kiba couldn't believe his eyes, as did Gasper. Even my powers. Ooir. Boost, 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 boost. This is bad. If we stay here, we will also receive the impact of the attack, Akeno shouted as she took Zenobia in her arms to help her walk. But let's retreat at once, Issei. Riaz ignored what Kiba said and tried to take a step towards Issei. Riaz, I call her Akeno so she can reconsider. But I apologize. Kiba stopped Riaz and carried her in his arms, taking flight with her wings, being followed by Akeno who was carrying Zenobia, as well as Kaneko and Gasper. Boost, 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 boost. No, this can't happen. Shalba tried to free himself from the paralysis that the Sekiryuite put him in, but it was a futile attempt. And seeing that the Sekiryuite finished charging his attack, damn you Sekiryuite, Hakuryuku, Long-Ina Smasher, a gigantic and powerful torrent of green energy came out of the Sekiryuite's chest. And in the distance, Akeno covered everyone with a barrier that will at least cover them from the impact. And when the attack hit Shalba, the only thing what was seen was a blinding light. Nothing more. At the site, the only thing that remained of the temple were the foundation and the floor, nothing more. This was undoubtedly the power of the Sekiryuite. And in the midst of all this destruction, the Sekiryuite only looked at nothing while the chest area returned to normal after using that attack. Even aside from all this, the Gremory group was somewhat agitated because they collaborated to reinforce their barrier to resist the shock wave. They were somewhat stunned by the attack. Oh my god. Zenobia was the first to speak when she saw the scene. We were lucky too. The Sekiryuite roared again, but this time, everyone could identify her roar as an echo of sadness. Like that of an animal when he cries. Indicating that, even if he lost consciousness, Issei still feels the sadness of having lost Asia inside of her. Issei. Riaz cried a little seeing Issei like this. Hump. As I thought, she is the Juggernaut Drive. Everyone upon hearing that female voice, saw that Valery came out of a dimensional crack in space. Valery Lucifer. Riaz couldn't believe that she was here just like her peerage, and before the hostilities began. Don't worry, I didn't come to fight with you. What Valery said calmed the others down a bit, but they still didn't let their guard down. And Biku and Kuroko also came out of the same gap as Valery. And Nisama. Nah, hello Shiranaya. Greeting playful Kuroko mind. I only came to see because I felt a change in Haidu Issei. Valery would look at Issei transformed. Apparently this is an incomplete Juggernaut Drive. Is there a way to return him to normal? Asked Riaz, hoping that they would have a chance. Since he is in an incomplete Juggernaut Drive, it is possible for him to return to normal. But if he continues in that form for any longer, his lifespan will be shortened and he will die. What Valery said only worried and scared the Gremory group. Hey, she's from his group, right? Everyone saw that Arthur also came out of the gap in space and had someone in his arms. It was Asia. Zenobia was the first to react and went to the blonde, happy to see her safe. We found her in the dimensional gap when we were looking for something, she was lucky. Kuroko looked around while the Gremory group were happy to see Asia safe. Will Issei return to normal if we tell him Asia is safe? No. If you approach her she will kill you without hesitation. Valery denied Ria's question. However, I won't stop you. I know we are not in a position to ask you for anything but please. Akeno approached Valery with a worried face. Please help us save Issei-kun. You are his rival. Can you bring him back? Valery, seeing how Akeno begged him to save Issei and seeing how the others asked him the same with their eyes, happened to see Issei still transformed and seeing him that way was not to his liking, even though he knew that he would to die at any moment. He would be an idiot, but I wouldn't let him die like that. Instantly, Valery took flight with Divine Dividing activated and then Vanishing Dragon Balance Breaker. Valery with his armor on went at high speed towards the Sekiryuite. Valery, if you are going to do this, you must do it quickly. I know. Valery nodded to Albion's suggestion, it was time. And in his flight, an intense white aura began to emanate, so white that it was brilliant and then I, who is about to wake up, I am the celestial dragon who stole the principles of God's supremacy. I envy the infinite and I chase the dream. I will become the white dragon of supremacy and I will take you to the furthest limits of innocence. Juggernaut Drive. The last verse was accompanied by a strong explosion of energy with a great whitish glow. And when this dissipated, in the air flew a huge white dragon of the same size as the Sekiryuite, with its wings of light trails even larger than before. The Sekiryuite, upon seeing his attacker, instantly launched a sphere of energy from his mouth at the Hakuryuku, who with only his arms deflected the attack as best he could, causing it to explode in the distance. The shock wave made the place shake. The Hakuryuku raised her hands, creating several white spheres with blue rays. The spheres flew in the direction of the Sekiryuite, who, because he could not think clearly, only took flight with force, expelling energy from his thrusters. And he flew in the direction of the spheres and passed through them despite receiving damage from the attack, which surprised the hacker Yuiku, but even with it she didn't make him stop. And when she realized, the Sekiryu was already in front of her and mercilessly bit her neck very hard. G. The hacker Yuiku growled at that, and blood came out from her bite. The hacker Yuiku quickly kicked the Sekiryu in the abdomen, who complained and growled at that, but that only caused the Sekiryu to further strengthen her jaw in biting the hacker Yuiku's neck, who roared in some pain. Shit, even with an incomplete juggernaut drive it's doing this to him. It's the same as with the incomplete balance breaker, it has no logic. The hacker Yuiku would throw a blow at the Sekiryute's face, who this time spat blood, but she still kept biting the hacker Yuiku's neck. He was clinging to her in the same style as a tick. The hacker Yuiku tried to get the Sekiryute off of her, he landed another blow on her face, then a burst of energy and another blow, and the cycle repeated itself. The Sekiryute felt all the impacts to his face, but he cared little about the pain, but the pain of the blows ended up defeating the Sekiryute, who released the hacker Yuiku. Another blow to the face made him move away from the hacker Yuiku, who instantly, and with blood slowly coming out of his neck, he launched small white bursts towards the Sekiryute, who instinctively launched a powerful torrent of red energy that crossed all the spheres of the hacker Yuiku, who then dodged the energy beam that almost hit him. But it was that moment of distraction when the Sekiryute used the thrusters on her wings to propel himself and head towards the hacker Yuiku, tackling her hard in her abdomen. Making the hacker Yuiku complain and spit out a little blood because of it, but it didn't end there. The Sekiryute used his wings that were shaped like bars and nailed them into the hacker Yuiku's back, making her roar a little in pain. The hacker Yuiku would then expel the Sekiryute from her personal space by invoking several defensive circles that drove the red away. The Sekiryute recovered in the air and expelled aura. The hacker Yuiku did the same, and both began to fly against each other. Upon impact with each other they began to fight in the air at high speed. Their speed was such that they seemed like just flashes of light, and with each collision the entire place shook. The others couldn't believe that Valery has a hard time containing the uncontrolled Sekiryute. It almost seems the same when they fought at the faction meeting. Even with incomplete power, Issei could corner Valery with effort. In his mind, Issei was sunk in darkness, in the total madness in which the Juggernaut drive had subjected him. He didn't know what was happening outside. But instantly. My name is Asia Argento. Please tell me Asia. The memory of when he met her came to his mind suddenly. Asia. My wish is to have friends with whom she can buy flowers and books. Being able to talk and go to various places. That's my dream. Also when she told him the greatest wish of hers. Something simple that they never gave him in the church, but Issei was able to give it to him. Asia. It wasn't long, but I'm happy I got a friend. The memory of him when he saw her die for the first time and he couldn't do anything to stop it. But she died, ha 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 ha, that girl is dead. That voice. He hated remembering it, and she appeared right in front of him. Rainer. It was fun playing with a guy who never had experience with women. You became very protective when it seemed like he was having problems. But he was just pretending. Would you die for me? The Sekiryute roared loudly. You could see the pain, frustration and sadness in his roar. Even with that, the Sekiryute began to attack with more ferocity than before. He used her claws and dug them into hacker Yuiku's abdomen, making her growl, but the sudden bite on her neck made her scream in pain. Buck, what the hell is wrong with this idiot? He looks like he really wants to kill someone. Valery, you should put an end to this once and for all. At this rate, the brat will die from losing his vitality. I already know that, but it doesn't let me concentrate the way I want. How strange. Naya. Kuroka along with Arthur and Biku were some distance from where the fight between both dragons was happening. And apparently, the three of them felt something strange about the Sekiryute. The energy from him is strange. He seems like he's not just Drogon or a reincarnated demon. You're right. This energy. It is darker, more cruel and merciless. Too much for it to be part of the curse of the Juggernaut drive. Biku was also serious about all this. And like Kuroka, both of them could feel how every second the Sekiryute's vitality was being consumed more and more. There's something inside him. Office. Arthur was surprised to see the dragon god next to them without them even noticing her arriving. Returned to the Sekiryute's subconscious. You're crying for me. I don't think I can take it anymore. Thank you. Again the memory of him when he saw her die for the first time. And I couldn't protect her. Issei fell to his knees with a flood of tears. Again. I couldn't protect her. That's how it is. You couldn't protect her. Rainer appeared behind Issei, hugging him from behind. Not before. Not now. No. In reality, the Sekiryute continued attacking the hacker Yuiku with all the ferocity it had. You could feel the pain, sadness and frustration in its attacks and roars. The Sekiryuite slashed with its claws that Hakuryuku blocked him with his arm, and with the other he dealt him a strong blow to the abdomen that made him spit out blood, in addition to generating a powerful electric shock that ran through his entire body. No, the Sekiryuite, despite the pain and damage he received, continued attacking an injured person, as if not caring about being in such a state. He will continue attacking to kill even if he dies in the process. Valery, use it now. I know. The Hakuryuku moved the Sekiryuite away a little and then grabbed him by the shoulders and gave him a strong headbutt that disconcerted him. And then. Divide, 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 divide. The Hakuryuku suddenly began to divide all the power of the Sekiryuite. And it worked, his power dropped drastically, but even with that, the Sekiryuite continued struggling, as if wanting to continue after all. But instantly. Calm down. Sekiryuite. Office Ouroboros was behind the great red dragon, with his hand touching its back and released a black energy from his hand. And by doing that, he walked away from the Sekiryuite who now seemed to start to calm down. Now Valery the girl complied with what Albion said, time to finish this. Divide, 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 divide. The Sekiryuite's power continued to divide until it was almost left with nothing, and without knowing it. He ended up exchanging glances with the Hakuryuku who continued to divide his power. They both looked into each other's eyes and then. In his subconscious. Issei was still lost in madness and despair, but instantly. A whitish light became present in that place of infinite darkness. Issei looked at the direction of said light. Saw how Valery appeared in the place, and she seemed to be the one emitting said light. How was that possible? Don't suffer anymore. Was the only thing Valery said, who extended his hand. Issei seeing Valery, she felt like she saw a star. And then, he reached out to take hers. And before that happened, Issei only let out 2 words. Morning star. Saying that, Issei took Valery's hand. And the whole place was illuminated by a white light. In the reality, the eyes and gems of the Sekiryuite and the Hakuryuku went dark. And instantly, both of their armors shattered as if they were glass. Leaving them without armor and both falling to the ground. And in the middle of the fall, Issei regained consciousness for a moment, seeing that he was falling and that. Above him. Valery was also falling and it was noticeable. Exhausted. But for some strange reason, Issei felt at peace when he saw her and then lost consciousness again while they continued falling. And when they both finally fell to the ground, without expecting it, Valery ended up on top of Issei. And when she realized the compromising position they were both in, she instantly blushed with embarrassment and got off of Issei. Before a misunderstanding is created, although the brunette was still unconscious. What is that? Arthur asked, seeing that Office had a black mass in her hand. This was inside him. Kuroka and Biku looked at that massive dark aura analytically. Being able to confirm that this was the strange energy they felt in the Sekiryuite. However, they both swore that for a moment they saw the silhouette of something or someone in said dark mass, it seemed. A woman laughing with pure evil. How odd. The Office, seeing that dark mass for the last time, only closed her palm, making said massive dark aura disappear into dark particles. Whatever that was, she will not bother the Sekiryuite again. After all the great hustle and bustle that occurred, Issei regained consciousness and the others calmed him down, in addition to showing him that Asia was safe and that it was Valery and his group who saved her. Issei thanked Valery for what he did. What she did, but wanting to appear neutral, she only said that it was a coincidence or that she did it on a pure whim, although her companions could notice Valery's somewhat embarrassed tone. Shortly after, a gap appeared in the sky and everyone saw that a being had come out of it. The most powerful existence of all, Great Red, the Sekiryuite. Obviously both Azazel, Tannen and Office made an appearance before everyone and saw the Great Red, with Office declaring that one day he would regain his silence. Valery and her group decided to leave the place when they saw that everything was over, but not before the girl told Issei to become strong, so that nothing that just happened would happen again, and Issei took that statement seriously. Arthur even expressed his desire to fight Kiba, who gladly accepted. And without further ado, Valery's team left the place. And just when the Gremory group was going to retreat, Issei suddenly became unconscious and everyone decided to treat him quickly. Apparently he suffered consequences for using the Juggernaut drive. 2 weeks would have passed since the battle against Diodora and Shalba. At that time, one day suddenly the Norse chief god, Odin, made an appearance at the Haidu residence, being accompanied by his bodyguard, a Valkyrie of name, Roswis. And that Barakiel was in charge of guiding him. Shortly after, Azazel arrived and they talked about issues related to the Cows Brigade, in addition to the fact that Odin wanted to speak with the Japanese gods. And at the end of the meeting, Azazel and Odin went to a bar while Roswas watched them. That same night, Akeno had a little talk alone with Barakiel, his father. Dunn replied to her about her interest in Issei, but Akeno complained to him saying that it is her life and that he does not decide for her. Where after the awkward talk between father and daughter, Akeno went to Issei to seek comfort, where Issei casually ended up using Akeno's new ability, bilingual, reminding her of her past with his father and mother and giving Akeno a reason to forgive his father and stop living an illusion. A couple of days after Odin's arrival, everyone accompanied the chief god to the place where he would speak with the Japanese gods, but on their way to the meeting place, they were ambushed by the Norse god of deception, Loki, who he showed his discontent at Odin's idea of forming an alliance with the Biblicals and that Ragnarok would begin. And he summoned his son Fenrir, the god-devouring wolf, to kill Odin, but Issei and company held Fenrir as best they could until unexpectedly, Valery Lucifer and his group arrived at the place as reinforcements and Loki was forced to retire for the moment, but that he would return in a few days to continue with what was planned. Everyone returned to the Haidhu residence after that, where upon questioning the supposed help that Valery and his group were offering them to fight Loki, Azazel ended up convincing everyone that Valery's help is better than nothing, since their enemy was a god and the god-devouring wolf that is in the top 10 of the strongest in the world, where in the end everyone accepted knowing that they had no other options. In addition to introducing a new member in Valery's group that no one else had seen until now. Le Fay Pendragon, Arthur's younger sister and descendant of the mage Morgana Le Fay. Details not important now. And so, they began to make preparations for the battle against Loki. Azazel with the help of the dragons, used the dragon gate to summon Midgardsormr, the sleeping dragon and one of Loki's sons. Where the serpent dragon proposed the replica of Mjolnir to defeat Loki and the improved chains of Gleipnir to restrain Fenrir, where everyone thanked him for the information. And the next day, Odin returned to the residence with said replica of Mjolnir for Issei to use and gave the data on Gleipnir's chains to Valery and his group to take them out at the right time. Another day later, everyone prepared to go fight Loki. These being the Gremory group with Irina, Roswas and Tannen, Valery and her team, and finally Sona with Tsubaki, since Aji had not yet returned since Azazel took him away for something, but to send him quickly when he finished there along with Barakiel. They all waited for Loki on the outskirts of Kuo, and when the god of deception appeared before them, the other members of the Citri group with the help of Ajuka Beelzebub who went to give a small contribution, activated a circle of force teleportation, teleporting Loki along with those who were going to confront him to another place so that they could fight without reservation and not affect the human world. The area they arrived at was a large abandoned mine, perfect for them to fight. Oh, so this was his plan. Oh well, never mind. This mine will be his grave. Loki said looking at them with an arrogant smile as he crossed his arms. Loki-sama, please stop this and surrender. Simple Valkyrie, know your place, you can't order me to do anything. If they want to stop me, they must do it with their own inferior hands. As Loki said, everyone prepared to fight. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker, Vanishing Dragon Balance Breaker. The two celestial dragons put on their armor, ready to fight, while the others prepared their weapons and powers respectively. Loki, for his part, summoned 4 large magical circles from which Fenrir emerged along with his children Hati and Skoll, and also a snake. Giant dragon at least 20 meters high. Midgardsormr? Issei asked in amazement. No, she looks like him. But his aura is somewhat weak compared to Midgardsormr's. Tannen reported, leaving some thoughtful. It is possible that it is a clone made from the DNA of the real Midgardsormr. Arthur said pointing out the logical. Seeing all the enemies that although there were 5, 2 of them were far outnumbered. And that was worrying. Udo, Zenobia and Irina-san, you take care of Hati and Skoll. Me, Akeno, Sona and Tsubaki will take care of the copy of Midgardsormr. And Kaneko, you protect Asia and Gasper. And Gasper, use your power when you see fit. Hi, those mentioned nodded to Ria's idea. Arthur and Biku, support them with Hati and Skoll. Kuroka and Le Fay, go together with the Valkyrie and Tannen and take care of Fenrir. While Issei and I take care of Loki. Those mentioned nodded to what was said by Valery. Having said that, everyone began the fight against the god of deception and his children. Kiba, causing them to take damage from others while Kiba restrained them. Rias, Sona, Akeno and Tsubaki took care of the copy of Midgardsormr almost without problems. Where the dragon launched a powerful flare that Tsubaki reflected with his sacred gear, Mirror Release and hurt the dragon. Sona restrained him with a water snake, and Rias and Akeno launched a combined attack of his powers that seriously damaged him, but it didn't seem to be enough to defeat him. This will take a little longer. Kuroka and Le Fay with the help of Roswas and Tannen managed to keep Fenrir at bay as they should, but they still had to be careful with his fangs. Even the slightest rose would go badly for them. The former Dragon King held the wolf back as best he could while the girls attacked with combined magic and waited for the right moment to use Gleipnir's chains, since using them before will make everything go to waste. And the last fight, which would be the most striking, was between Issei and Valery against Loki, who defended himself, almost as if nothing had happened, with his barriers that barely resisted the magical attacks of the hacker Yuku, who apparently learned Nordic magic, and that was problematic. When Valery managed to break Loki's barriers, Issei took the opportunity to attack the god and managed to deliver a strong blow to his face that made him move away a little. But blow, Sekiryuite. But it's not enough. Although he said that calmly, Loki made a very unfriendly face. However, touching a god is a very big mortal sin. Okay, I think he's already upset. That's very obvious, idiot. Valery responded to Issei's supposed sarcasm. But that said, the fight resumed again. Loki attacked even with light, making Issei and Valery go on the defensive at that the light is bad for them. Obviously, while still defending themselves, Issei and Valery started a counterattack plan to take advantage. They had to synchronize well, although they doubt that will work again if Loki manages to anticipate his idea. And so it was, Issei distracted Loki as best he could by going head to head against him, trying to hit him. But Loki dodged his blows in the air as if it were nothing, but Issei continued to attack again and again, no matter how many times he was dodged, but he achieved his goal. Keeping Loki distracted, who forgot for a moment about Valery, who he managed to land his best blow in the stomach, making him complain slightly and use the divide on Loki, reducing his power very little. But enough so that now Loki began to attack both more seriously. When Loki attacked with great power, Valery protected her and Issei with a barrier of Nordic magic, whereas backup, Issei used his transfer to reinforce the barrier. Then both attacked Loki with bursts of power, where when they managed to blind him or distract him for a moment, Valery took advantage and approached him to hit him and use his divide. And the cycle repeated itself in different ways. Damn. You two are definitely worse than the plague. They make a monstrous combination. Loki for the first time began to pant from slight fatigue. Red has no talent, but he is tenacious and superior in strength and endurance. White is talented and superior in speed, both parties being his greatest strength, but his strength and endurance are inferior to Red's. So opposite and at the same time so similar. The two sides of the same coin. Well, thanks for the compliment. Issei smiled a little mockingly when he saw that they were making him desperate. Still. Loki suddenly raised his hand. I'll make sure one of you dies. Issei prepared to continue the fight, but Valery noticed how Fenrir was approaching at high speed towards Issei and with his mouth open, indicating that wolf plans to devour him and the idiot doesn't know what is going to be attacked from behind, and without hesitating for a second, Valery with her best speed reached Issei a second before Fenrir, and before that wolf bit him, Valery pushed him, taking Issei out of danger. And now, she was the one who was at the mercy of Fenrir, who opened his mouth and but what? Before Issei complained about why Valery pushed him, he instantly heard the sound like a bite, and when he turned in that direction, he saw with horror how Valery was in the jaw of Fenrir, with his blood staining both Fenrir's armor and mouth. And the girl let out a moan, spitting out blood. V Virginia. Valery Issei's scream made everyone else also see in horror Valery in Fenrir's mouth. Loki laughed with amusement when he saw the result. It seems that he will end up killing the hacker Yuku first. Fenrir, finish her once and then go for the Sekiryuite. And let go of her. Issei with anger and without hesitation for a second, launched himself against Fenrir and gave him a strong blow to the face that forced him to let go of Valery, who fell to the ground. But Fenrir, growling in annoyance, moved his paw faster than Issei, managing to give him a strong claw that seriously cracked the Sekiryuite's armor, who fell to the ground with blood on his armor. Issei-san-kun senpai, his friends who wanted to help him, shouted worriedly, but Loki's children did not allow them that. I won't let you kill them. Both Tannen flew with great force, attacking Fenrir and spinning with him several times on the ground, leaving the dragon on top of the wolf. To then bite his neck with his jaw wrapped in fire. And the wolf howled in pain and rage. Shit. Issei stood as best he could, even with blood coming out of his wounds and staining his armor. Issei-san Asia sent him his healing aura, making him feel a little better, but he still needs some time to fully heal. Haidu. Issei. The aforementioned, upon hearing him being called, saw how Valery also stood up as best he could, even with the blood staining his armor. I will take care of Fenrir. And you go and finish Loki once and for all. Interesting words. Hacker Yuku more powerful, but they are useless if you can't prove it. What can you do in that state? Loki scoffed, believing that he had already won and that he didn't have to do anything from here. Then don't underestimate me. Insignificant god of deception. As he stood firm, Valery began to emanate a new energy that violently shook the place where they fought. And said energy repaired his armor completely. Phew, but what? Issei for some strange reason felt that he recognized said energy, it was cruel and merciless, but in Valery it was calmer. And everyone was speechless when she started. Making a song. I, who is about to wake up, I am the celestial dragon who stole the principles of God's supremacy. I envy the infinite and I chase the dream. I will become the white dragon of supremacy. Valery's armor began to mutate, growing 3 times its size as the armor changed a little. He became more dragon-like at a certain point. And the helmet's eyes glowed brightly as he entered the last part. And I will take you to the furthest limits of innocence. Juggernaut Drive. The last verse was accompanied by a strong explosion of energy. And in the place now there was a colossal white dragon the same size as Tannen and Fenrir. The hacker Yuku of supremacy was ready to put an end to this. And that's Juggernaut Drive, partner Drake confirmed to Issei what she was seeing and what she had transformed into previously. But that roar, the hacker Yuku charged towards Fenrir at a speed that surpassed the speed of sound by almost nothing. Thus attacking the wolf and biting his neck strongly while holding him tightly with his arms, and divide, 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 divide. The wolf's power was drastically divided while the hacker Yuku continued to do enough damage to him. What? Loki didn't believe what was happening. Arianaya. It seems like it's time. Saying that, Kuroka together with Lefay summoned a large magic circle under Fenrir. And from said circle came the chains of Gleipnir that tied Fenrir who was trying to free himself, but the hacker Yuku would not allow it. Seeing that it was time, Arthur and Biku returned to the girls of their group and the Nekomata together with the mage summoned a magical transportation circle under them together with Fenrir. What do? Simple, we take Fenrir. Arthur answered Issei's question, leaving the others speechless. And the human put his sword, Excalibur ruler on Fenrir's forehead and enveloping it in holy aura. Valery Naya wants on his side the fangs that can kill a god Naya. Kuroka said without further ado. But that said, we retreat. Good luck. Arthur said goodbye with a slight bow and thus, Valery's team along with Fenrir disappeared from the place in the magic circle. DGGGRRRR. Damn hacker Yuku. Loki was more than angry about all this haughty, Skoll finish off all of them, let no one be left alive and we will go after his father. But that, the others prepared to fight again against the sons of Fenrir and the copy of Midgardsormr while Loki prepared to finish off Issei, who was now backed by Tannen and Roswus. It was then that a powerful lightning roar was heard and a powerful holy lightning struck Loki mercilessly, making him bewildered for a moment and then something like tentacles wrapped in black fire appeared from the ground, trapping him. Loki and restricting him. What? Loki didn't believe what was happening just like the others. And when they followed the direction from which that lightning came, they saw that in the distance was Barakiel accompanied by a large black serpent dragon of the same size as Tannen with tentacles, and it seemed to be the cause of said black fire. Vivritra. What Tannen said surprised everyone without a doubt. It's Saji Genshuru who entered that state suddenly and is barely in control. We had no choice but to bring him like this. Saying that, Barakiel raised his hands, charging another powerful holy lightning. Saji Genshuru, restrain Loki as best you can and hide you. Issei, use the replica that Odindono gave you and understood. Issei, feeling that he was already healed, repaired his armor and activating his thrusters, attacked Loki at high speed while he took the hammer that he had at his waist. The others, seeing that, only increased the intensity of their attacks to finish off Loki's children once and for all, this time with Roswus backing them up. Miserable mortals. Loki tried to free himself from the tentacles with black flames, and although he freed himself from some, a lightning bolt from Barakiel and a flare from Tannen made him stay in his place. Now drag, yeah, boost, 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 boost. Transfer. Issei transferred the accumulated power to the hammer, causing the hammer to grow in size and release a large amount of lightning. And just when Issei was about to hit Loki, Amsekuyutee, that was the last that was heard from Loki, who was hit mercilessly by the great hammer and creating a great lightning roar. And Loki fell to the ground with suddenness and force and with smoke coming out, being barely conscious. Loki looked at Issei for the last time with what little consciousness he had left and he raised his hand pointing at the chestnut. I curse you. Sekuyute. That was the last thing Loki said and then fell unconscious. And without knowing it, something that was believed to have finally been sealed, he reappeared in Issei's soul and subconscious. Where he felt a chill for some reason, but he ignored it anyway. Shortly after that, the others managed to eliminate the copy of Midgardsormr and knock out the Wolf brothers Hati and Skoll, whose powers were sealed thanks to Roswus, and he did the same with Loki. And a short time later, Odin arrived at the place accompanied by Azazel, and thus the chief god took Loki, along with Hati and Skoll back to Asgard with the help of his personal guards. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.